Welcome to
Yay.
Pitching Pixels. This is a brand new weekly show where Greg and I log on and we talk through the film adaptation process on a piece of interactive entertainment, a video
Yeah.
game from somewhere, from someone every single week. This week, Greg and I have pledged to talk through the um, video game, the film adaptation of Call of Duty: The Modern Warfare, the classic, arguably the most classic installment in the Call of Duty franchise. Um, Obviously, um, the Call of Duty games are much more focused in terms of their audience base on the the not the campaign, but the other part of it,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. The
the
multiplayer.
the multiplayer competitive scene. So and there's absolutely no story whatsoever in the multiplayer scene. The campaigns can be
No.
very compelling as video games. Why did you think this was so important to cover, Greg? Let me ask you that up front. Well, first of all, tell people who you are. Tell people who's Greg Schwartz.
Yes. Hi. I'm Greg Schwartz. I'm a writer, director, producer, actor, editor. I do everything. My roots are grounded in the writing and the storytelling aspect. Or I mean, it's all storytelling, right? But the basically the story construction. Um, I realized, pretty early on, once I was getting into the film and television industry, that for me, it would be a little bit too, I don't know, just frustrating to my ego to write a beautiful, incredible script and then hand it off to have someone else make it. So I kind of decided to just uh, level up everything else, and here I am now. In development on my first major feature, and I say major, it's not tentpole or anything, but yeah, no, and this is what I am. This is what I do, and you know, I'm still like half asleep. I spent all of yesterday. Like I didn't get home until like 1 in the morning. I spent all of yesterday in New York City with my composer actually, who was visiting from the UK, who I'd never met in real life before, and he's awesome. So we were like walking around in Central Park, drinking, and yeah, it was a day. It was wonderful. But I'm a little like I'm waiting for the caffeine to kick in for today still. It's noon already.
If this is anybody's first show on the stream, my name's Tennyson E. Stead. I am also a writer director. I began my theater and film career through tabletop role playing games, and um, in, over the course of my career, I've always sort of been going back to that well and doing a lot of creative stuff there. And it's only been kind of in the last year and a half that I've decided that I should probably be focusing much more earnestly on the content that I've been developing and the work that I've been doing. Jump Rangers is the sort of pillar of this channel. Jump Rangers is a game about kid space commandos trying to claim a space for humanity in the stars. We were invaded by um, an empire of tyrannical space dinosaurs, and they kind of brushed us off our planet. And the only way that people could survive was by sneaking aboard their gigantic spaceships and living in the corners like mice or cockroaches. So we've kind of become the bedbugs of the galaxy and spread out into their empire and encountered all the other empires that they are at war with and in conflict with, and it's all giant monsters. So we're the little pests of the universe. We don't have interstellar travel of our own. The only way for us to get it is by sneaking aboard alien spaceships and trying to hide someplace. So
Yes.
while the grown-ups have been living this kind of ragtag, bandaged blasters, very desperate existence, some of the children in this world have banded together and put together an order of heroes called the Jump Rangers, who are sneaking aboard alien spaceships and leading human colonies from place to place and trying to save us from extermination efforts and all kinds of other things, finding new places to colonize, trying to find a way to retake Earth. There's a big arc in kind of the meta plot of the game right now about that. I'm editing a book about that. So please check out Jump Rangers stuff. There's a lot to see and a lot to read right now. The visual art of this world is starting to come to life thanks to the efforts of our art director Federico Estevao, who is magnificent and very committed. And you should check out some of the production art. There's a Ko-fi, coffee,
That's
coffee.com.
I didn't. I don't think I actually knew that you were in that stage of it. That's pretty cool.
Yep, the core book is written and edited. I'm still making tweaks because it's a tabletop role playing game. There's always more information, but it's what Federico and I are working on finding a a a layout artist, someone to come in and help us actually design the book because we want it to be very kid friendly. We need to know how many illustrations we need, and we need a plan for what those illustrations need to look like, and we're going from there. But there are currently 5 like 30-page plus supplements on Jump Rangers, and over 60 micro supplements, a couple pages a piece of just scattershot things that I do every week because I think they're interesting. Um,
Yeah.
and uh, those supplements are now in the process of being compiled. So there's a 6th supplement on the giant robot space empire that's at war with the Saurian horde that I'm in the process of cobbling together and editing now. It turns out I just had enough material from all the other stuff that I've done. And I have a 7th source book that I know I can get away with on the Saurian horde themselves, which is very exciting. So there's a ton. There's a ton of world building on Jump Rangers and a novel. I mean, I've written a novel now, and I'm editing it, but that's where everything is. So the hope,
We still need to talk about if you wanted
yeah,
anything with the editing kind of.
I have been
Mhm.
reorganizing everything. I've been rebuilding my streaming schedule, and on top of that, there's been some project atom bombs that went off in my life very recently. I haven't been given
I know
time.
that feeling.
Yep. So I've been this month. I've been working on a project that is currently in active development, and which is uh, we it's been a process of juggling notes from meetings,
Okay.
not just not like at streaming companies. I'll put it to you that way. So making sure
Right.
that everything that needs to be there is there,
Absolutely.
which has been great. I mean, that's exciting stuff, and we'll see what comes of it. I'm on the project right now. Who knows what happens if it gets picked up? Um, but that's been very positive.
That's
So
awesome, man.
thank you, thank you. So why why modern warfare? What demanded to you? What demanded that we talk about this?
I mean, not so much a demand. I just think it's a really interesting game to think about as a movie. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I would not say that it's the greatest first person shooter of all time. That for me is reserved strictly for GoldenEye 64. Like that game redefined the genre for me. Like, yes, first ever was probably like Doom or Quake or something like
Mm-hmm.
that. But it really Modern Warfare. It almost feels like Modern Warfare was the game that made the first person shooter relevant in society, I guess, because it was I mean it probably was like the first person shooter to have kind of that like MMO feel
Mm-hmm.
to it.
Mm-hmm.
And functionality because of Xbox Live because it was originally for the Xbox and I think it was an Xbox 360 game. I don't think it was original like Gen 1 Xbox. But
I might have been.
because like if you wanted to play GoldenEye with your friends, what did you do? You had a big television, probably one of those massive like CRT plasma televisions, and you had an N64, and you had to invite people over to your house and actually do socializing. Oh my God, what a quaint idea! And you would be playing four-player split screen, which was always a gas, but like. How do you stop people from looking at the other people? I've seen these amazing like not they weren't even memes. They're like before the time of memes of like amazingly innovative home remedies for like dividing up the television screen so people couldn't screen watch and stuff like that.
It was Xbox 360 and
It
PlayStation
was
3.
Xbox 3. Well, it had a PlayStation release too. That must have come way later. Um, but then so like Modern Warfare made the multiplayer FPS experience a real thing. Not that it wasn't already a real thing, but like oh God, screen watching is to me both hilarious and infuriating.
Hmm.
Because like how do you police it? There's no way. And Modern Warfare and Xbox Live kind of obfuscated the need for it or
Hmm.
obsoleted the need for it. So it's such an iconic game. And to be fair, like it was really like it did a good job with the details.
Yes.
Right? Like a lot of
It
those
was
those
extremely
weapons.
procedural. It was extremely procedural
Yeah.
and very immersive. It was
Yeah.
extremely I so
But
yes.
also just like the factual accuracy of a lot of things there was really good.
Yeah. Well,
Um
those things go hand in hand, I think, in
yeah.
when you're dealing with technical situations.
So, they clearly, the when I think about Modern Warfare, and you and I talked about this, to me, like what was the most? I mean, I played the campaign because when I was more of a serious video gamer, multiplayer was great, but really, again, I'm a storyteller. I'm all about like immersing myself in the story, and so I adored the campaign, and I thought that Modern Warfare really had an exceptional campaign.
I agree. I
Um,
agree.
there's so much good about it, and it was, like, yeah, it had its moments of sensationalism, and maybe, there are parts of it that are a little bit, how would you say, like maybe Mission Impossible in terms of their grandeur and
And the hairpin
the,
like
the James Bond factor, I guess you could call it.
there's a lot of plot points that come down to extreme coincidence.
Oh
Like
yeah,
like
yeah.
there's a lot of plot points where they to keep you in the moment, they're like, "Oh, this is about to happen. You have to run right now." Like and then you're 3 seconds too late. Like
Right, and
the
that's uncontrollable, right? Like there's
yeah.
nothing you can do, so it's it's
Yep.
it's like forced narrative.
Yep.
And so like as a movie, right? It's a really interesting idea because I think that yet you do have to change some of the execution, but I don't think you have to change the details, like those key benchmark narrative points. Um like, so what? The whole story is like, towards the end of it, the terrorist gets access to a nuke and launches the nuke, and you have to do the whole like, literally Mission Impossible 4. Yeah, it was Mission Impossible 4 bit of like, Tom Cruise is chasing down the guy with the briefcase in the car park, and he's got the suitcase that was stolen from the Kremlin, and he's like, mission accomplished, and slams the button and it doesn't work because Benji hasn't put the things back in the server yet. It's very, very standard, just like keep raising the stakes, keep raising the tension until the last possible moment, and the game's narrative does do that to an extent, I
Yes.
think. I'm not saying that it's misplaced. I mean, I think that there's value in that. I just think that for again, you and I had the discussion, like for a book, for a game, it's so easy to get fully immersed in the narrative because you're part of it, right? It is an immersive experience. Whereas, and I've always said this, films and television are voyeuristic. They're not immersive by nature, so you can't get away with some of the things that you do in um, in video games and books. So like anytime there's a car chase sequence in a video game, it has to be executed so differently in a movie because having to swerve and dodge a car or like take the wheel and you have to reach over and hold the steering wheel for a guy. Like when the player is doing that, that's super intense. But in again, I'm just going to keep going back to Mission Impossible here with like Dead Reckoning, in that whole scene where Tom Cruise and Haley Atwell are handcuffed and they have to do the getaway kind of thing. It's not as it's a great detail of the chase, but it doesn't make the chase by itself,
Nope.
kind of thing.
Nope.
And yeah, so
it's one thing that I'm
there's
always
more.
saying.
It needs more.
A spectacle is seeing people do things you didn't know people could do, and
Right.
and the trouble with trying to create spectacle using gimmicks is that gimmicks are fundamentally engineering based,
Right.
and we understand tools. I don't know if I've ever had this conversation with you, Greg, but we understand tools to be something that replicates results. Like a tool does a thing, we see it, we get it.
Yes.
The first time you saw bullet time in the Matrix, you said, "What?" And then the first time you saw it in Charlie's Angels, you were like, "Oh." And
Well, I mean, you can break it down to like the most fundamental level. What's a hammer? Right?
yep,
Like
it's
it's a
exactly
tool
right.
of functionality. Yeah.
It's impressive the first time you see it. You're like, "I had
Mm-hmm.
no idea this was possible." But you
Mm-hmm.
move on. On the other hand, people will always underestimate other people, and the magic of cinema is that your brain thinks you're just watching a person on the screen, but you're actually watching the craft of like 30 or 40 people combined to bring together the
Correct.
performance that you're witnessing. So if everybody's doing an amazing job, you're not prepared for how good it is, and you can't be, because on the one hand you've underestimated everybody involved, and on the other hand you only think you're watching one person. So
Yes.
so yes, like the idea of, and for a stunt person, the idea of chaining two people together,
Mm.
like for a chase, is compelling because I didn't know I could do that as a stunt person. But
I did that in
yeah.
my first fantasy short, right? That was like the sticking point for me in Red Valley. It wasn't a car chase. It was hand-to-hand combat to the death, unarmed hand-to-hand combat to the death, but the combatants' left arms were ritualistically bound.
Yeah.
And so like you couldn't get distance from each other. It was a very close quarters kind of fight, but it also allowed for this really kind of unusual, but in this context totally warranted and proper choreography that otherwise is
Sure.
not attainable. And in a video game, that probably isn't that interesting to a gamer kind of
Yeah.
thing, because now your functionality is restricted, if anything.
Yep. I think on the other
So
hand though, like, and this is like, we live in a post, we have to a large extent integrated the worlds of Hong Kong cinema
yeah,
and and Western cinema. And you know, your heart, we've seen a lot of parkour, we've seen a lot of things. Like at this point, I think it's really hard for a stunt person to come up with something that executives will say, "Oh, nobody's ever seen this before," and that's great. But like, the truth is, we've seen enough things that are similar that we've done the math, we've done the engineering work of accepting that this is
yeah.
possible, and that's you know to me that just puts the onus on the writing and the acting, and it takes the pressure off of. I think it's a good thing because every time a new media gets developed, the first thing people do is make porn with it every single time. And then they start sort of defining the boundaries of what's going to shock people about that thing. And then after everybody gets tired of that process, we finally get to work. And
Right.
I think that frankly, we've killed enough stunt people in the pursuit of something no one's ever seen before. And
I mean,
you
I have
know,
I have very strong opinions about stunt. I mean, you're never gonna hear me say, especially as a stunt person, that stunts should be replaced with VFX. I mean,
no, no,
for
that's
one,
not what
for
I'm
one,
saying. That's not what I'm
well, for
saying.
one, I don't think that's ever gonna happen. But
Right.
for two, it's never gonna be as good. But
But my point is,
like,
like, can we stop like having meetings where we're like, but can we crash the helicopter into the airplane? Because like no one's ever seen a helicopter crash, and we have to stop trying to find new ways to
well, that's
kill
like
people.
this
Like,
is this is probably like why stunts have always had such like an absence in the Oscars kind of thing. And this is the logic I have always heard, which is like the Academy has just not wanted people to be chasing maximal like consequence insane spectacle stunts just to try and win Oscars, because it's like people will die. Like
yes,
people already die doing stunts somewhere in the world every year kind of
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
But and I understand that perspective, but there's also like the Tom Cruise perspective. It's so easy to just lean into Mission Impossible on this topic.
Well, he
But
is
like
an advocate for no one's ever seen this before. Let's do it. Like that's his
but
whole
Tom
thing.
Cruise is also actually and legitimately one of the best stunt performers in the world. And he's certainly, maybe he might even be like one of the top 5 stunt drivers in the world kind of thing. Like the motorcycle chase at the end of MI2, yeah, that's
Yeah,
all him kind of thing. You know, he is genuinely a master of the craft of stunts. And so my consternation with the really high difficulty stunts, and I would never talk bad about like the legit stunt coordinators who do everything they can to make sure that their performers are safe and are adjusted properly with their rate and everything. Absolutely would never say anything. The
yeah,
danger comes from when people start trying to take shortcuts with stunts. That is just unequivocally the recipe for disaster. That's what happened on Rust. That's what happened on Resident Evil Apocalypse.
yeah,
That's what happens where things, and it's a matter of it's the triumvirate of filmmaking, right? You have fast, you have cheap, and you have good, and you can only pick two.
yeah,
And when you start doing when you start sacrificing for stunts, right? Like the thing you have to sacrifice is cheap. You
yes,
can't stunts are the thing where you do need to pay people and have the proper time to do it. And again, to all of Tom Cruise's credit, him riding that bike off the mountain in Dead Reckoning is one of the greatest stunts ever performed. And that was done with the utmost preparation and care. And honestly, I wouldn't have been concerned for anyone's safety on that. To me, that was a less dangerous stunt for Tom to do than the stunt he broke his ankle on doing that huge like just run and jump onto the side of the building in it was Rogue Nation, or maybe it was Fallout. I think it was 6.
yep.
It was 6. It was the one where he was chasing Henry Cavill. But like yeah, so insane stunts, I do think they have their place. I really do. But I think that there is
What I'm saying is
yeah.
you don't want to write to the stunt.
Oh, yeah, no. That's yeah, as a writer, yeah, I'm very hesitant about writing in big stunts. To me that's almost like
If the
that's not
character
even for a screenwriter, I
you don't
think.
want to
That,
you don't want to create a series of events that
that
lead
require.
just for the sake of establishing a visual effect,
Right.
and it puts people's lives needlessly in danger to do that.
That should and I'll even take that a step further. I don't think it is responsible for like screenwriters who are solely screenwriters. Like they won't be involved in any part of the production after the script is bought by the studio and it's passed off to a director kind of thing. Those screenwriters have no business writing like any stunt that's bigger than just like kind of your base level, like
Like
okay, the bad guy's gonna fight a
car
guy.
chase or a fight or
Yeah,
whatever happens to be necessary for the character
right.
to accomplish their
And
goal.
the car chase, okay, but no details, right? Like you can't put in. You can't try and like novelize, the car chases from Mission Impossible or The French Connection or any James Bond car chase, because all of those details. One of my favorite car chases of all time actually was in No Time to Die, the last Daniel Craig James Bond movie, at the very beginning. And like there's that moment where like they're doing the whole thing like going down the staircase but not doing anything crazy with the car. It's like you can't write that. because the logistics of executing that for a production are insane. And
Yeah.
yeah, maybe it's a tentpole feature, and they have essentially infinite money, and they can just throw it wherever they need to make sure
But
that
just
it's done
because it's in
safe
your
and right. But
imagination, just because it's in your imagination doesn't mean it's the best thing for the character to do in that space. And there's a level of expertise that comes from knowing how a competent driver is going to take
oh yeah,
their car and use it as a tool. It's not about the ballet of it or this or that. Although I think,
the ballet also doesn't strictly matter to the
yeah,
story,
exactly.
right?
That's my point about that's exactly what I'm saying about about the car or crashing the whatever the airplane into the whatever. Like the whole thing with the tank and at Rambo 3, right? Where they crash. Like and
Or how
then
about the tank in Goldeneye, the movie?
yeah, that's
Like,
and then on the other hand, you've got car chases like what you see in Rodin, which to me is just masterclass action filmmaking. It's so good. Like, and it's
or
because
Mad
and
Max Fury Road, like,
well, but I think the thing that makes Rodin so effective, and Mad Max too, but the thing that makes Rodin so effective is that they're focusing on what the driver is doing to accomplish their goal. You're not watching the cars; you're watching people drive, and the
yeah,
whole and the camera choreography is built around communicating what the drivers are doing to accomplish their goals more so than what the cars are doing in space as like an abstract piece as an abstract composition, right? It's not about the composition of the film. It's about the action of, in that case, Robert De Niro as a driver trying to steal his money back. And it's
yeah,
just so good. It's so good. It's fantastic. Even to the
yeah.
point where they got those cameras down in the footwells so that you could because shooting someone shifting is hard. Getting because cars are very cramped spaces and there's obstructions to your view. You can't even sitting next to someone, you can't necessarily see what their feet are doing, what their arms are doing at the same time. And they had to find ways of putting the cameras in places where you could actually understand what Robert De Niro is doing to that car, and then the only reason you pull out of the car is to see what the car is doing. Like so one thing we've never talked about is editing special effects. Okay,
That
but
and that. Well, specifically special effects or visual effects.
it doesn't matter. The point is this:
I
any
I I'm I actually do think it does matter.
not for the purposes of the edit, not for what I'm about to say.
Okay, okay, go ahead.
So the whole point of having a visual effect or a special effect is to lend credence to what the actor is doing. The reason why you have pew 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 in Star Wars is because you need to understand why these actors feel threatened by these weapons. That's the whole reason. And
Oh, well,
what
yeah, we
but
have to visually show the stakes, kind of thing.
it's not for any reason other than to communicate why these actors are taking their gunfight so seriously. That's the
Right.
only reason. What you're actually watching is people shoot each other. And if you
Yeah.
pull back with the camera too far or you have this big sweeping shot of the battle, you lose the action of the actors and the whole thing becomes theoretical. A really good example of how this works, Steven Spielberg doesn't always write great movies, but he always shoots great movies.
Right.
And the chase in with Tom Cruise in Minority Report where he's trying to get out of the car. One of the
I haven't seen
defining
that one. I know,
which
I, I know, I know. That's terrible of me, but go ahead.
one of the defining shots of this movie is when they pull back and you can see how the transportation system of this city works. He's on a magnetic car, he's going up a rail up a huge building. It's really tall, it's very frightening, and you get a sense of what the future looks like and it's very exciting for that reason. But that's just stuff that your brain is taking in. What you're actually watching is Tom Cruise try to escape this magnetic car because it's taking him someplace he doesn't want to be, and he's standing on top of the car. It's on its side, going up the building, and he's standing on the side of the car on top, trying to figure out when to jump. You're watching Tom Cruise do math. And the only reason the camera pulls back is because actually the math is scary. Like, the math that he's doing is very fast, and the stakes couldn't be higher, and you're watching him figure out exactly when to jump off this building and through the window of another building so he doesn't fall like 60 stories.
Yeah.
And he's moving at like 100 miles an hour. and you can't see that
So
unless
is this similar to kind of like what Anakin does in Star Wars Episode 2 when he jumps out of the speeder on Coruscant to catch
I
the
would
person that he and
venture
Obi-Wan are chasing?
I would venture to say it is the opposite. I would
Right. Well, because in terms of story, because like Anakin's using the Force and he just like he doesn't have to do the math, right? He just
right.
feels it. But yeah,
And they pull back for the sake of the composition of a little Anakin in the middle of this giant city falling through space because George Lucas would much rather look at special effects than actors. Like you only by watching the prequels can you appreciate how much the budget forced George Lucas to engage the actors in the first trilogy.
right. Well, so like, but that's kind of my point, right? Like, this is the difference between writing to the actor and writing to the scenario, right?
Yes, exactly right. There's
Yeah.
Attack of the Clones has tons of cases of things happening or things falling into place in just a certain way to create a domino effect that, in theory, would delight the audience.
Right.
In theory, because you see all these things, just kind of this chaos, this organized chaos. It's like watching a watch, except it's not like watching a watch because it doesn't have an external purpose and it's just exists for its own sake, and ultimately that makes it less interesting, and it certainly makes it less high stakes. I fell asleep the first time I went to see Attack of the Clones, and I am a
Mhm.
huge Star Wars fan. Huge. I was working a lot. I was not in a healthy place when I did that. I was beating myself. I was a mess, and I did need a
Yeah.
nap, so I'm not
Granted,
really.
I was in high school, and my high school self adored that movie, kind of thing.
I tried so hard with the prequel trilogy, but a big part of the problem is, like you say, it's all set pieces in that sense of being
Yeah.
written to delight the audience with the Rube Goldbergness of it all.
So actually, I'm glad you said that because I understand we're here to talk about modern warfare, but
Yes,
I'm curious since we are talking about
this
the
is all
Star
relevant
Wars
stuff, and
and the
this
prequel.
these are the
Yeah.
conversations that are going to happen in a boardroom when people, because one of the first. Well, let me put this to you. Who do
Right.
you think would ask for this movie? Who was the person who would say Call of Duty Modern Warfare? Let's find us a screenwriter.
Well, I don't know the names of studio
No, no,
executives that
no.
I
But
might be
like,
able to
but
call
like,
upon,
but like,
but
do you think it would be? Do you think it? Microsoft owns it now, don't they?
yeah, I mean Microsoft has always owned it as far as I'm aware
Do
as the
you think it
Xbox
would
property.
be? Do you think it would be them, or do you think it would be? Do you think it would be a studio partner saying what would it take to get that property, or do you think it's a?
I think it's I think it's a studio. Microsoft, as far Microsoft doesn't have like like an entertainment production arm, do they? Kind of
They
thing.
produced the Halo television series.
Did they actually?
Yep.
Okay.
Microsoft. They
Well,
were unwilling. They were unwilling to let anyone else.
to let
They.
anyone else have it.
What's that?
I haven't seen it. Did it
Hang
do
on one sec.
well?
We got input from Fergus. What's that? Oh, Borderlands is also coming out. Are they a more? Are they a Microsoft property? Ippy Looney
Well,
says
yeah.
yes.
Well, yeah, but like, what about Fallout? Right, like Fallout just came out. I actually know a ton of people who are on it.
Bethesda probably has. It is owned by Microsoft now, but I think
Yeah.
it's kind of a Pixar situation where they
Okay.
probably have their own autonomy
So
when it comes to. I wouldn't
I'm
assume.
gonna answer that question in two ways, but I still want to ask you about the Star
Okay.
Wars thing at
Okay.
some point.
Okay.
Um, I think that if it is gonna be more in the limited series fashion, like what we are kind of seeing more of now with Fallout, Borderlands, yada yada yada, um, maybe it is Microsoft that holds on to it
What's
because
that?
I think I say maybe it is
Oh,
Microsoft that
it's
holds
owned
on
by
to it.
Take Two. Borderlands is owned by Take Two.
Okay. Well, I think that it is. The truth is, I think it's more likely for a studio to be like, let's just get the licensing rights to make to make this like a Netflix or an Amazon Prime. Um, because especially with Amazon, like, oh my God, how much money did they throw at season 2 of the Rings of Power kind
I
of thing?
don't know that
Yeah.
there is a budget for a television show big enough
To do Modern
to
Warfare,
do Modern Warfare. I don't think it exists. I think that, and you wouldn't want that. You wouldn't want, like, first of
you
all,
wouldn't want it to be crazy high budget though. That's the thing.
well, it's got, it's got you look at something like Secret Invasion was the biggest, most expensive television show made at the time that it was made.
Right, until
And
season 2 of Rings of Power,
yep,
which laughs at everything that came before it, kind of.
sure, but even in that show, you're building a lot of sets, but they are sets you can reuse. Number one, and number two, like most of the work that you're doing on that set when it comes to special and visual effects is non-destructive. It's all relatively environmental and or like there's the big there's the big forge scene, right? But you're not building miniatures and blowing them up. Like you're not
Wait, you're specifically right now talking about Rings of Power,
yeah,
or
Rings of Power and Game of Thrones and other shows of that ilk. Whereas in something, and you're not building miniatures like you were on Lord of the Rings. Whereas a Call of Duty movie is going to make a Call of Duty movie based on the actual plot of Modern Warfare is going to make Black Hawk Down look like contained. No,
yeah,
and
yeah,
there's
well, yeah, that is a good point. Like, because of the nature of the narrative,
it's a
you
world
can't you,
hopping
you,
thing
you
where you
can't
blow up a
stay in one
city,
place.
and on top
Yeah.
of that, you're blowing up huge shit everywhere you go.
Okay.
Plus a nuclear
So
blast.
I'm not sure that early chapter storyline belongs in a movie. The nuke going off, yes, but there are the missions when you're in the Middle East playing. I can't remember as the guy, the USMC guy. Um, and I clearly, they see the nuke go off. He ends up, KIA and stuff like that. But I don't I don't know if that belongs in the movie, just because it defies storytelling convention. And again, that works in a video game, and that would also work in a book, I'm positive.
Mm-hmm.
I just I don't know, because you can't. How do you kill off a central character in Act 1 and not confuse the hell out of the audience?
Yeah, well, I think it's pretty straightforward.
It's pretty what?
I think the answer to that question is pretty straightforward, and I think so. So these are all good questions. How is my favorite question, as opposed to saying like, because most of the time when people say how, what they mean is I don't see a way to do it. I don't think you can. But the truth is, saw the spectacle is seeing people do things you didn't think they could do. Those kinds of challenges are what make this movie unique and interesting, as opposed to unshootable. Those are the kinds of challenges that like a good screenwriter will solve. And my thinking is that this whole this whole movie. So number one, let's concede that it's an ensemble piece,
Yeah, okay.
like because it has to be. You've got Soap, you've got Ghost,
Yep.
you've got that character in the first act. You've got the
Which
CIA.
one's which one's which one's Ghost?
Ghost is the guy with the mask who doesn't ever show his face, the skull mask.
Yeah, I just don't remember what he does in the
He's a
story.
he is
Is he
backup for
is
the
he,
he's backup for the player, and he also I think it's in Modern
he so
Warfare.
he's one of the SAS guys?
I think he's an American.
I don't remember Ghost being in the original one.
Was he not?
That's what I don't remember. I don't remember. Maybe Ghost was Modern Warfare 2. I'm trying to remember. It has been a while. Um, yeah, I don't rightfully remember. What I don't remember the character Ghost. I wish there was like I'm trying to pull it up. I wish there was like a wiki. Oh, here we are. Modern Warfare 4. Okay. Call of Duty 4, not Modern Warfare 4. And yeah, I guess we should be to clarify. We are talking about Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. We are not
Yes.
talking about Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2019
The
release.
story's the same though. The story, it doesn't matter which one we're talking about.
Oh, is it? I didn't realize it is actually. It was a remastering of it.
Yes, it's a remaster. It's
I
not
didn't know that.
it's just they and they did as little as possible to affect the gameplay as well. They wanted the game.
Yeah.
They cleaned up some bugs, they added some new maps, but they wanted to revisit the classic and they wanted it to live up to the graphics and audio standards of the time as much as possible. So
Got it.
it was an effort. It came out after, and it was also at that time in the history of the Call of Duty franchise, they were experimenting
Yeah.
a lot with the storytelling of warfare in the future. They had just released Black Ops 3, they had just released Infinite Warfare, and they wanted um, to assure the fans that this was something they were doing because they thought it was cool and not necessarily an attempt to abandon the roots of the franchise. And actually, as I recall, the remaster of of what you call it of Modern Warfare came out with packaged with Infinite Warfare, which I liked a lot.
Okay.
Um,
So I did find the wiki. Ghost is only in the reboot. He's not in the original.
oh,
So there are some subtle changes. Wait, maybe there's one in the regular one. Hang on. Simon Riley 2006. I don't know. This is weird now. Because he's not in the character list for the original. But also apparently there's a Simon Ghost Riley page. I think he's in. Okay, so I think he was introduced in Modern Warfare 2. Is what it is.
he kills your character at one point.
That's what I'm. That's what. Does he? Call of
Yeah,
Duty on.
you find things you're not supposed to know, and Ghost kills you at one point.
Okay, no, I think this is modern. Yeah, I don't see him for the original Modern Warfare,
Okay,
which is maybe why I was a little
but
confused.
you're still playing different characters on different missions. You're swapping through, which is a staple of the Call of Duty franchise in the
Well,
campaign.
and that's also how you end up in an ensemble cast kind of project, kind of thing.
So here's my thinking is that like these soldiers are being sent on these missions theoretically in response to a sudden threat, right? There's all these like there's the threat of a nuclear detonation. There's the threat of the there's all these different things that come up and they give you missions. But one of the
Hmm.
characters that they introduce is the CIA handler, the female CIA handler of the agent, who
In Modern Warfare,
yeah. Isn't there a CIA character in Modern Warfare? I read a synopsis before we started this.
I
Um,
don't believe so. That sounds like one of the, that might be like Modern Warfare 2 or 3 or something like that.
okay.
Um,
Well, here's
so
so what I'm thinking is you focus the story on the commanding officers and their efforts to move these characters because the truth is
so more like a Saving Private Ryan kind of construction.
no, I think more like Snatch really.
I haven't seen Snatch.
I think that it is a story about pieces being moved on a chessboard. And
Yeah,
and
yeah.
someone knows that there is like whoever called on that particular I forget the operative's name, the American operative who got blown up in the blast. But whoever it was that
Uh, that is, I have it right here. So that is Lieutenant Price. No, never mind. Sorry. Paul Jackson, First Force Reconnaissance Co. at USMC. That was
okay.
Paul Jackson.
Okay. So somewhere there's a USMC general
Okay.
who knows and has been working with the Defense Intelligence Agency and probably the CIA on tracking nuclear weapons. They probably know where it came from and they're looking for it. So
Okay.
this isn't just about this isn't just a story about trying to contain a a rogue nation
Right.
and a political coup in Russia. This is the story about the active efforts of the CIA and the Defense Intelligence Agency and all of the soldiers who are put in the line of fire specifically to control a nuclear leak in Russia that is empowering that coup.
So how does the SAS fit into all of this? Because after the nuke goes off, there is no more American like
Right.
faction in the story. It's all just
Well,
Soap and Lieutenant
someone's
Price and the SAS.
someone's suddenly accountable to NATO. like at the end, yes, a nuclear bomb just went off. So the cat's out of the bag. There was an attempt on the part of the American government to contain this information, and it did not stay contained. So now, whoever it is running these missions has to go and work with British Special Forces, which makes perfect sense.
I would be concerned that we're now almost maybe like taking too many liberties with the
I don't
story
think
kind
so.
of thing.
I think that all of this, because Call of Duty is all about backstabbing.
It's all about backstabbing.
Yes, it's all
Mm,
about it's all
it's
about
not a heist movie.
no, but it is about disposable people.
Sure,
And
sure, but
and
but isn't it like what you said? Like if we're trying to write to a theme or to a message, which is fine for a book, fine for a video game, but if we're trying to do that for a movie, aren't we going to lose people?
what I'm saying is I don't think it's too much to assume that the information that the soldiers had going into these fights was not all the information.
I think that's totally valid, right? Like I think that there's nothing I don't see any issue with
And
that in
so
terms of functionality.
what you really have is a soldier or a handful of soldiers in their each in their own way on different missions, because Soap isn't the only protagonist of modern warfare. I think
But
there's
he becomes the only protagonist
because the other one
after the
dies.
nuke because the other one dies, right?
So
And so well, I mean, I get what you're saying,
so I
right? And
think
that all makes sense to me.
so it's not so much about a soldier trying to navigate this political landscape. Just it's not about the things that we make soldiers do. It's about a soldier trying to figure out what the mission actually is, so they can actually achieve the mission and help me help you. They're trying to figure out what it is that's actually going on, so that they can turn around and do the actual thing and try and cut through all the baby steps. And there's people who are theoretically smarter than them withholding information to try and so it's about and I would have to play the game again, but I don't think Soap is the only character you're playing, even in the third act. I think there's other missions with other characters.
I mean, no, I think I'll bring it up, but I'm pretty sure the only mission once the nuke goes off, the only mission you have not as Soap is the flashback in Chernobyl. I think. Let me see here. Campaign missions. So yeah, Shock and Awe is the mission in Act One where the nuke goes off. Aftermath is that's like a not that's watching that's watching yourself die.
Mm-hmm.
And then right, so Safe House is Soap. All Gillied Up is the flashback. One Shot, One Kill is the sniper moment. Heat is which one is Heat? I'm trying to see. Yeah, that's also Soap. Sins of the Father is a Zakayev mission, so that's also Soap. Ultimatum on no, it's all Soap. It's all Soap after the nuke goes off.
Okay. So the thing that
Um,
if it's about
I
yeah
I think about this. I don't can I kind of give my vision on this a little bit here
yeah
because I see it in a totally different way than you. I think.
sure
Um, again, when I'm thinking about adaptations, and this is exclusive to adaptation. I think if you were developing original IP, what you just said is 100% like yes, let's do that kind of thing.
mm-hmm.
Um, with the adaptation, I feel like it would just lose the fan base. Making it about like giving it from the perspectives of the people moving the chess pieces rather than the chess pieces themselves. And I understand that like for movies as writers as filmmakers we really do want to avoid kind of like the leaves blown about in the wind trope.
yeah
But my contention, my thought here is that we play as Soap because they're able to set it up in the game. I'm talking about in the game we
yeah
play as Soap because they're able to construct it in a way where you don't feel inadequate at sucking at the game in the early missions because Soap is the FNG and is like, supposed to not be super experienced in the early missions
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
But that's not quite as interesting. And to me, again, this goes back to kind of the discussion of, is it a story about are they going to win, or is it a story about how are they going to win? And that's an interesting line here. And I think that if, again, I still think that like putting an ensemble element into this would be appropriate, but I would want to see the main character be Lieutenant Price. Um, I would want it to center around him because that way we can still lean into all of the missions that were. But because we don't really get to because we don't play as Captain Price in the game, we don't get to really understand the character motivations. We don't get to understand what makes Captain Price tick. We only get to learn about his experiences, the stuff he's seen, the stuff he's been through, but we don't know who the man is. And so doesn't need a story. He's just the fucking new guy. And and probably is, let's be fair, he's probably like in his early 20s and has been in the military since he was 18 and like fresh out, like he probably doesn't have any real wants. He probably doesn't even know who he is. But Price is old enough and has seen enough to know all of those things. And so for me,
no, I think that's good, and I think that's good because on the one hand, you have the government's involved
and
literally
Price
with
being, but like Price being an officer, we can get moments of him like dealing with his superior officers.
and at the same time he's got to try and cultivate, like he's trying to raise Soap into an effective operative. He's trying to teach this kid how to survive.
And
And
he's also a leader with that perspective of like my men are my family,
yeah.
right? It's not impersonal to him, so it gives him a reason to need to be maximally efficient and successful in the missions and stuff like that. It's a very compelling reason, and there are so many ways I feel like that through the I call it the character lore kind of thing, Price can be built into an incredibly compelling and riveting character without losing any of like the details and the plot, the set pieces essentially of the plot that made the game so riveting kind of thing.
At the same
Um
time, I think you can start with the operative and the American operative who gets killed. I think you
yeah,
start
yeah,
I
Jackson.
I think you start with Jackson and you lean into the work that Jackson is doing because Price is inheriting the mission. Price
So
is
so like what's the timing with that, right? Like do you open with what is it here? I'm looking where's my plot here? Do you open with where is it? Khaled al-Assad begins the coup in the Middle East while Russia is in the middle of the civil war with the ultranationalists, and we're gonna ignore about the whole FNG training thing in the warehouse, but then where is it? The al-Assad executes the president of Saudi Arabia, and then the death of al-Falain triggers an invasion of the Middle East by the first recon force of the USMC, consisting of Lieutenant Vasquez, Staff Sergeant Griggs, Sergeant Paul Jackson, and others infiltrating the town, and that's where the TV station is.
mhm,
Um,
right.
and so it turns into this whole thing, and so we're on that until the nuke goes off, and then we switch. But like all of that first stuff is maybe like it's not even the entirety of Act One. Maybe it's just like the first scene and like scene one, scene two kind of thing. Or are we going back and forth between the USMC and the SAS up until that point? To
No,
me,
I
it's
think there isn't. Soap doesn't have anything to do until the nuke goes off, right? Because the British don't
no,
know.
they have the wet work raid on the Estonian freighter in the Arctic Sea,
Uh,
and that has to be in the movie. That is such an iconic scene. Like that
It
has
is.
to be in the movie. The
Yeah.
cargo ship, right? At night and the ocean spray and there's, this nuclear device in the cargo hold and yeah, that's got to be in there. That's the first mission that you actually play. That's before the USMC stuff, I believe.
Well then, I submit to you that the nuclear explosion is at the end of Act One.
I mean, I would agree with that. I would still. I'm not saying that we can't witness that, in the USMC POV. I'm not saying that. I actually think that's the right way to do it because it's way more compelling. But
I also think that in that sense, if we look at soaps, like Soap finds a nuclear bomb, and or Price finds a nuclear bomb, and they wash their hands
right,
of it. They find it, they turn it in, job well done. You know what I'm saying? Thank you, sir. You're welcome. They wash their hands of it, and then a nuclear weapon goes off on foreign soil and sparks a war. What that tells me is that Price didn't he didn't do, like he accepted what his superiors told him. He decided the
yeah,
job was
yes,
done.
yes, yes, because they got the thing in off the freighter in Estonia, and so like that's like okay, we did it, we saved the world, and then the bomb goes off.
And it's like, so it's number
Yeah,
one, it's Price's fault.
I don't know if it's Price's
Well, no,
fault. I mean,
I'm
he
saying
did he
like
did what he was told.
but somebody in that situation is gonna say like, I fucking knew I shouldn't have listened. I fucking knew I should have kept pushing. Like fuck, like you got that.
But like in how? But like in what way though? Like that
Well,
that that one I don't get
I
because
think at that point Price goes back and says, "Sir, you're sending me to fix this." That's how he says it, "Sir."
yes, but again, like
And the guy's gonna say, "Why? We're what's your why?" This isn't even our not my circus, not my monkeys is gonna be what the SAS says.
oh,
And Price says, it's my monkeys. Like it's my monkeys.
I mean, yes. To me, I kind of envision this like I see it almost as like I see Price as almost like that Bruce Willis in Armageddon type of character, but with actually a character arc written, not one that Bruce Willis has to come up with on the fly. And like so the oil crew members are Price's squadron's family. It's like, and what did you say? The line of action that Bruce Willis found in Armageddon was is like, I got to prove that my guys are the best oil drilling team in the world, kind of
Yep.
thing.
Yep.
And I think if Price were to kind of have that, I visualize the movie, right? I visualize the edit that as a director, as an editor, that's kind of how I do it. I see this movie starting with Price, like it's almost like a I see Price as like the Jack Bauer of this kind of thing. I actually see a
Yeah.
lot of the same dramatic beats and rather character beats, not like narrative beats, but like the character arc beats, similar to how like that first season of 24 played out, or maybe even the sixth season, where they do have a nuclear bomb go off at the end of episode 4
Yep.
of a 24 episode season, kind of thing. I think that there is a lot of lessons that can be taken away from that and learned from that in trying to construct a movie like this, because really that is kind of the setup. You have Jack Bauer trying to stop the nuclear device, goes so far as to shoot one of his co-workers, right, who he has been around for a couple seasons at this point, in order to preserve the life of the reformed terrorist who knows where the bomb is.
Yeah.
And the bomb still goes off,
Yep.
kind of thing. And then Jack Bauer, like the entire rest of the season until we get to like the last 4 episodes, and there's the huge big plot twisty reveal, which I won't get into because it has nothing to do with the nuclear bomb. Becomes about getting even with everything that happened. And I do think there's a lot of lessons there. So I kind of see it as Lieutenant Price is Jack Bauer chilling in his home. And this is the great moment where we can see like what Price's personal life means to him. And it doesn't have to, it can be whether it's like maybe he likes to paint figurines or some shit. I don't know. We give him something that matters to him, right?
Yeah.
And then he gets the text message from his superiors, whatever. And he goes in, he gets the briefing, but meanwhile we can see what the USMC is doing, right? We get to live in the shit with the USMC while they are operating in, Saudi Arabia
I
or
wouldn't
the
want it
Middle
to be a
East.
coincidence. I wouldn't want it to be a coincidence that they put Price
No,
back in.
no,
Like he's
No, it's not a coincidence, right? He's the best. It's not like he's retired. It's
no,
not
no,
like
no.
Red, but
I'm saying like I'm what I'm saying is I think the SAS probably has a number of different special ops teams,
sure.
and I think that there's always a logic to how British intelligence and British military forces utilize them,
Oh,
and
for sure.
and I think that in order to keep Price involved in the story, I think he needs to go in and say like, this was my baby and it went south. I need to fix this. Like this was supposed to be fixed. I said it was fixed. Like my name's on this. Let me fix it. Like, and they're gonna
Let
say,
me let me ask a question here, and this is just a
yeah,
weird. It's kind of just like a hypothetical. I'm just spitballing,
yeah,
but like, so all right, let's not have just Price sitting at home, and then he gets the text message because you're
yeah,
right. That is a coincidence. You're absolutely right. What if instead we have a prologue mission? Okay, call it a joint a joint operation
no, no,
by,
no, 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 no.
no, 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 hear me out. Hear me
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
Don't just shoot it down. You don't know
Okay,
what I'm saying to say,
okay,
right?
okay.
It's like a joint SAS operation,
Mm-hmm.
okay? And they're going to get whichever of the four horsemen, right, which is appropriate for the time, for the moment, right? Whoever is the biggest present threat, whether it's not Al Assad, or yeah, whether it's Al Assad or Zakayev or either of the other, or Makarov, whoever, right? And they do the mission, and like maybe they think they, again, kind of like adopting from 24 here a little bit, but like maybe they think that they kill the guy, but in killing the guy, maybe one of Price's like lifelong military buddies, who is his own commanding officer of his own unit, because it's a multi-unit operation, gets killed in action, and Price has no closure. Right? Yes, they did the mission, but the friend got killed doing the mission, and so like yes, it was a Pyrrhic victory, right, for
Yep.
them,
Uh-huh.
and then we see all the rest of it, and it's like, wait a minute, I thought we took care of this, and the superior officers are like, no, it's just the remnants, it's just the straggling people, they don't have any chain of command, like the U.S. will take them out, and Price is fighting to get into this shit, and he's trying, and he's being insistent about it, and all of the superior officers are like, dude, shut up, just let America take care of it, they got this, don't worry about it. And then the nuke goes off. And it's so clear at this point that there's more to the story, and then there's not only is there this element of righteous indignation that Price like felt like he should have been in the ship with them, because maybe he feels like he could have prevented it, not that he really could have, but maybe he feels that way, but there's also a revenge element, and there's also like a pride element in it too.
I think that you're gilding the lily here. I think
Maybe.
that I think that creating backstory to try and solve these kinds of problems is always a misstep. I think that
I
Price.
think it's most of the time a misstep.
Yep. So he finds a nuclear weapon on a
Right.
ship and turns it into his government. He secures it. He secures the
Okay.
weapon. He knows it came from somewhere. It's on a ship. It's being shipped from somewhere. This is
Oh, so you're thinking about it almost like the Ark with Raiders of the Lost Ark, kind of,
well, what I'm saying is like, yeah, he turns it in,
at the end, and he
and
turns it in, and Indiana Jones is like, well, what are you gonna do with it? Like this needs to be studied, and like we have our top men on it.
yeah, that's exactly what happens. Like
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden this American shit show like
Right.
gets all these people killed, and he's like, I I found the I there was intelligence right there. Why did you not? Why did you? Oh, like
Right. Well, we are on the same page that the weapon that Price and his team finds on the ship, on the freighter, is not the device that gets detonated in the Middle East. It's a different device.
no, yes,
Right.
but it's
Right.
clearly like, but it nuclear weapons don't show up on the weapons market casually. Like
Right, right. No,
this is
it's clearly it was sourced by, from the same channels, kind of
that's it,
thing.
and
Yeah,
that kind of global view of the problem
yeah,
is very Call of Duty. Like that
yes.
that like this is a nuclear weapon. It's probably coming from Russia. Like like who in Russia is wholesaling nuclear
Well,
bombs?
I mean, I think that even you could, in the mission briefing, like, when, even if it's just like we start in medias res, and like we open in the helicopter as they're flying into the Baltic Sea or wherever, the Bering Strait. I'm sorry, it's the Bering Strait. And Price is kind of briefing the team on, like, we suspect there's a nuclear device on this ship. Spent uranium rods went missing, kind of thing, and we suspect that they were used in a device here. And then, like, they do the Geiger counter readings, and they're like, it's definitely radioactive, but it's not as strong as we thought it would be, kind of thing.
Or they're even or he's not even being told. Like, he's being told to take Geiger counter readings, and he's like,
Okay.
"You gotta be kidding me!" Like,
Okay.
and they're like, "Just do it, son." And he's like, "Yes, sir." Like, and he's like, and so he calls him up, and he's like, "I found the bomb. Like, it's exactly what you obviously thought it was. My boys and I are actually ready to deploy to Germany. Like, we want to be within 6
But why?
minutes of we want to be within 6 minutes of the Russian border as soon as possible." Like,
But why though? Like that to me, that's
because
why? And also that's like you don't do that in the military. Like there is very much chain of command, and there is operating procedure, and like
okay, but I think that if you find a problem, you take responsibility for it. I think that's my point. Like, and if he finds something, he's like, "So read me in. Like, I'm the guy now. Like, let's fix this." And they're like,
but it's already fixed. That's the whole point.
No,
like they find the device, they secure the device, and then that's supposed to be the end of it.
But he knows it's not, because he knows the device came from somewhere. This isn't his first rodeo, and he also probably doesn't have the highest level of trust in commanding officers, because again, it's Call of Duty.
I'm cool with that, but it does. I actually, we say we try to avoid building backstory to make the thing work. The truth of the matter is that the backstory that works for that is already built into the story with the Gilly mission that he was on in Chernobyl, which means that we would have to go to that at some point, and I'm totally cool with that. Yeah. Nothing wrong with that. But we still need to provide a context and details and give more of Price's headspace than the game gives us, kind of thing. So we do need to, I say gilding the lily, but we do need to, like, flush out who Price is, what makes him tick, why he thinks the way he does, to a degree.
And my point is, all of that stuff comes out naturally through the efforts of the characters to accomplish their goals. If Price is trying to get himself assigned to the mission and fails,
people will ask why.
That's exactly right. Why is this important to you? And he's like, well, I see a pattern here. I actually have experience in these theaters. And they're like, son, it sounds like this is a personal thing. We don't do personal things in the fucking military.
Right, but again, we don't at this point, because this is very early, we don't know if Price is a reliable narrator or not.
And that's okay. We don't ever need to know, because
I do not agree with that statement. I do not agree with that statement at all. Because if he's just like an ancillary character, sure, right? Like it probably doesn't matter whether or not we know he's a reliable narrator, because we don't need to know what makes it. But if he is, I'm not going to say the main character, because I also agree this is more of an ensemble thing. But like, if he's the primary lens through which we view the story, right? The audience demands to know the range of belief they are allowed to have with what the character says and does.
So at some point, so let's just say, for the sake of argument, that Price so he goes on the mission to the ship. He recovers the nuclear weapon. And and he's like, I'm okay, this is great. Like, this is obviously a deep well. I'm ready to, I've got a shovel. Let's go. Right. Okay. And they're like, we don't know. Thank you for your service.
Right. And he knows it's a deeper well, because what the audience doesn't know at this point, but Price knows, is that he was in Chernobyl when that deal went down. He knows, I don't know, the quantity of spent fuel rods, or he knows maybe, like, during that mission they discovered a huge cache that was unknown by intelligence. So Price knows it exists, but they couldn't do anything with it because they're not really outfitted to deal with that kind of radio. I don't know, whatever it is, right?
So here's how it works.
Price knows something that no one else does, so that's why he wants in.
So he goes in and he says, I was there, and they're like, it's being handled. Don't you worry about a thing. Thank you so much.
Right.
You did a great job. And he's like, okay, fuck. right? And he goes home. I keep saying
Mm-hmm.
the F word, and this is Twitch, so I need to watch myself. But
We can swear here, right?
no, we
Like,
can. But also, Jump Rangers is eventually gonna like this
my
channel.
bad. All
So
right, I will watch my language as well. I
so
apologize.
it's all right. Right now, I don't code anything as created for children, but there will come a day. There will come a day.
There will come a
So
day.
so 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 then we switch to the Marine Force Recon and we deal with what they're doing in the city that gets blown up, and
Right.
then like of course Price is just going to go sit and wait in the lobby to talk to somebody. Like at that point, he's just got to be like, "This is ridiculous. Like, put me in, coach. Like, what are we doing?" Like, at
To me, that just feels. I mean, yes, that works, but I don't think you can just go
no,
from the nuke blowing up to that. I
well, I
feel like
think
there's something that has to happen in between.
I don't think so. I think because he's walking in hot at this point. People, whole millions of people are dead because because
You have him just storming into like the war room or
no,
something like that. He's only a
you
lieutenant
have
at this
him
point.
sitting in the lobby trying to keep his cool, like just sitting there being like, and the news is on the TV even. He's just like. Like, and then eventually someone's like, okay, the general's going to see you now. And then they bring him up and they say, okay, what exactly do you know? And he's like, you could have asked. I'll, I'll tell you.
No, they know. No. That doesn't play. I don't think that plays off. They know what he knows.
Well then,
He
well
would
then,
he would have told them every. He would have debriefed all of the Chernobyl details at the end of the Gilly mission, kind
well
of
then
thing.
he would have
They
said, well
know.
then,
They just ignore him.
yeah. Well, what I'm
Yeah.
saying is at that point, if he's making himself available, they would have to say, like, we understand that you have, like, they are at this point, like, letting him make his case.
But they
And
don't. I don't think they need to vet him at all. That's the whole thing.
no,
Again, I don't think that it's a matter of them being like, okay, pitch us why, because like that's not how it works. It would be like Price goes in there like making the case whether they like it or not, but he'll do it in such an exceptional way that, like, again, it's like he screams so loud that the world has no choice but to take notice, kind of thing.
well, in that case,
Um,
and that's where you get, and that's so the flashbacks to the Chernobyl mission are Price's very detailed storytelling.
but I don't think that story gets told until the beginning of Act 3, to be honest.
Oh, I disagree. I think it happens at the beginning of Act 2 because it's too slow for Act 3. And because it's not about the reveal of the plot. In this story, it's not about the reveal of the plot. It's
All right,
about
maybe not. You're right. Not Act 3. It's not Act 3, but I mean, there are details to this story, and again, like both of us are a little rusty on it, so I think maybe there's a little bit of disconnect on based on like what we remember the story to be, kind of thing. Um, but you know, it's after so the bomb goes off, and the thing is like I want to we're the horsemen again here. I want to get the names right. All right, so the antagonists were it was Makarov who was the big bad at the end, right?
of
And then there was
of 3 or of 1. Was Makarov at the end of
no, Makarov is the big bad of the game,
Yeah, yeah,
kind of thing.
of the whole
Um,
series?
I'm reasonably no, just Modern Warfare. You kill him
Okay,
at the end
okay, okay,
at the end of the game.
okay, okay, okay.
There's as far unless I mean look, I didn't keep up with the games. I don't believe there's a big bad for the whole series, anything, because it's all mission by mission kind of thing. I'm very quickly checking to. All right, meeting is underway. Price attempts to assassinate. It was Zakayev. Okay, yeah. So Zakayev is the guy that Price takes the shot at in Chernobyl, right, and blows his arm off, kind of thing.
Yes.
Um, but so it was. I mean, where was Makarov in all of this? I'm confused. Attempts to assassinate Zakayev. I actually thought that was Makarov, not Zakayev. And as I gotta get the the details again. Zakayev. Well, I don't. Is Makarov? I need to click. I need to look at the Makarov page here because now I'm confused as to what Makarov's point in all of this was. He's in Modern Warfare 2, so maybe he's the bad guy that
Oh no.
goes from Modern Warfare 1 to Modern Warfare. Also main antagonist of Modern Warfare 3. What happened?
You glitched
Did
for
I
a
lo-
second. You glitched for a
Oh,
second.
did I? I'm sorry.
That's
Yeah.
okay.
All right. Is it all right? Okay. So all right. Makarov is the main antagonist of the Modern Warfare franchise,
Yes.
apparently. Also referenced in Call of Modern Warfare 2. Um, so I guess he's not really in the first one, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. That's who cares about that. Um, as it was Zakhaev's assassination attempt was were present in Pripyat when okay, so Makarov is there when Zakhaev was trading the fuel rods for the gold to fund the ultranationalists. Witnessed Zakhaev being shot and having his left arm blown off. Makarov drove Zakhaev away from the area, saving his life and returning his trust. Makarov was present during the USMC invasion of the Middle East in an attempt to remove Khaled al-Assad from power. He gave the order to detonate the nuclear device after receiving a phone call from al-Assad, who was hiding out in his safe house in Azerbaijan,
Right.
watching the detonation from al-Assad's safe house, with Yuri being the only one to witness this. The blast resulted in the death of over 30,000 Marines. This was the start of Makarov's madness as his hatred escalated even further. This event would also be a reason for Lieutenant General Shepard's motives in 2016. Right. Okay. So Makarov is a sequel guy. Makarov isn't really relevant for the original. So what we have here for the bad guys in the first one are essentially where are we? It's the two Zakhaevs and al-Assad.
Mm-hmm.
Am I glitching again? My internet has been really weird. So yeah, the biography, the hunt, the death. Was a new Russian informant. Was al-Assad in a safe house in Azerbaijan. Several other members of the SAS were dispatched to the village where al-Assad was hiding with the assistance of the Russian loyalists sent by Sergeant Kamarov. Essentially, al-Assad was captured by the SAS. Captain Price tied al-Assad to a chair and interrogated him, then intercepted a call on al-Assad's cell phone. Recognizing the caller as the Russian ultranationalist leader Imran Zakhaev, Price killed al-Assad by shooting him in the head. After al-Assad is killed, the British and Americans realized that the coup and the detonation of the nuke were masterminded and funded by Zakhaev, who attempted to draw the attention of the United States from the Second Russian Civil War to ensure his victory over the loyalist forces. So al-Assad is not killed in the nuclear blast. Al-Assad is killed by Price. Price goes and hunts him down as the person responsible for the blast. Good. We have motive for that. So what I see this as Price essentially not having hid any details of the Chernobyl mission or anything like that from his superiors. So the higher ups, both governments have all of the information. But in typical political fashion, they're not interested in connecting dots. They're just interested in immediate and present results to things that are right in front of them that are easy. And Price is the person who can connect the dots.
Right.
Price is the person who is able to connect the dots, and he does, after they do the wet work mission on the cargo freighter, he tries to verbalize this connecting of the dots, and they're just like, it's fine, it's done, don't worry about it, shut up. And then the bomb goes off in the Middle East, and then he comes back to them, and now they're kind of like, all right, well, I guess let's just hear him out because something's going on here.
This is what I'm, and even then he's the one showing up and saying, this is big. And exactly, he's in this situation, he's the Jack Ryan of it all, saying, listen to me.
Right.
Like,
and he makes the case for him being the guy.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think at that point when he's like, if he can, eloquently, in a heated state, as eloquently as one can be, verbalize and communicate the points that need to be made to prove why he is actually the guy. And it's not just him, it's not a matter of pride, but he actually is the guy.
Right. And at the end of the day, the thing that's going to convince them is not telling anyone else they didn't listen to him in the first place. like that's gonna be
right. Not taking responsibility for the failure, and then also subsequently taking credit for the victory that comes in the end, kind of thing.
At the fact that they don't have to read someone else into the situation and let them know that he was the guy, and that's it. That's all they need is. But I think you're right. I think him sitting them down at the beginning of Act 2 and saying, here's exactly what happened. Here's exactly what we're dealing with. We need to find these guys.
So wait, but to you, the beginning of Act Two is after the nuke, right?
Yes.
Not
Yep.
after the wet work mission.
Right. Correct.
See, foresee what you just described happening after the wet work mission, and then the nuke go, and they ignore him,
Yes.
and then the nuke goes off, and he comes back, and he does. I mean, again, I would say it's like it's a very Ethan Hunt yelling at his superiors to do the right thing,
Yes.
and at this point because all now the whole world, global thermonuclear war is on the table. It's like, okay, fine, do it, right? Like,
Yes.
whatever. But I also, and again, so I'm in hammering all of that out, and I think that's great, and that's all critical. But I see so much more that can be added to elevate this and add dimensionally to this. I think that Soap is still a character, right? And I think that Soap is on that wet work mission, and I
Yes.
think that we get to start seeing like a father-son dynamic there,
I think
kind
that's
of thing.
absolutely true, and I think it doesn't have to
Yeah.
be pushed because he's got a new kid, and he's bringing a new kid into a radioactive situation. He's going to be micromanaging Soap's behavior in order to make sure that no slip ups happen because he's a responsible leader. And then,
Well, I think Gaz would be the one doing that because again, you can't do a military movie and not adhere to proper chain of command kind of thing.
sure, but my
Yeah.
point is that the the work that how he leads his team reflects the goals that he has. He's
Oh,
not look
absolutely.
and he's going to be mindful and careful and supportive of procedure when it's useful to him and not
The
when it's
actions inform the intent.
yep, that's exactly
Yeah.
right. And so you've got all of that family building through the mission. It's part of the mission. And then and then the fact that he's walking in there and asking for this job suggests that at the same time, he does see his men as resources because otherwise he would be like, great, let's not do any more radioactive missions. That's fantastic news. Thank like
Which is again like that Bruce Willis thing, like my guys
yep.
are the best guys, kind of thing.
So the second time when he goes into the office, the reason why that's when you get to show the ghillie suit and the whole that's the reason why that becomes that because that's when the story's landing. That's when they're listening.
So
So
yeah, actually, you saying that good idea, and I don't think this is too much, right? But like, it is a little gilding. But I also think that like in an action movie, you need a little gilding at some points. Not just like, oh, okay, just dumping liquid gold over the whole movie, but like you need a little bit of it just to increase the sensationalism a tiny bit. I do feel that way. But that said, I think like after the nuke goes off, right? So like maybe the way I see this, all right, they do the wet work mission. Price makes his case. They shut him out, and he goes back home and he grumbles. And then the nuke goes off, and Price goes down into his, I don't know, bunker beneath his house or his safe room or whatever, because maybe he has one or maybe he doesn't. I don't know. But he goes and he pulls out the mission documents
he doesn't
from
have
that
those.
Gilly mission.
There's no way he has those.
Sometimes they do. Or all right, so even if he doesn't have them,
I
right?
think I
Maybe
think I
maybe he
think
goes to the art. Well, let me
yeah.
say maybe he goes to the archive, right, where they're being kept,
Hmm.
kind of thing. And this is a little bit red with Bruce Willis at the CIA archive vault and stuff like that. But so he goes and he gets the mission documents from the Gilly mission, and we have this cut of him like slamming them down on the desk of the general, kind of thing. And and the general is like, what is this? And then as like it starts with Price maybe beginning to tell the story, and then maybe we go into the flashback and we actually get to see that. I wouldn't feel right making this movie if the sniper mission, the ghillie suit mission, was only told in
No,
dialogue or even
well,
third.
here's my
I think we have to see it as a scene, kind
no,
of
I
thing.
agree with you. I'm saying we save it. So first of all, we have 25 pages reasonably to
Hmm.
get in and out of Act 1. So
Sure.
immediate
Well,
so
it's got to be more than that, right? I mean, let's be fair. This has got to be a tentpole movie.
It's not
right?
going
So
to
it's
be no,
got to it's got to be like a 150-page script,
no,
right?
nope. It's
No?
120 minutes max because this is also a video game movie, and because you want it to be clean and simple and straightforward. You don't no victory laps. We're not going to get too comfortable with this. So ultimately, I think you get the mission done. You get the mission done, and you've got the relate. You don't need him to go home, and you don't need to show how do you one of the things that I always talk about with clients, I know I've discussed with you when it comes to acting, is how do you play drunk?
Oh, by trying to be as sober as possible.
By trying to be as sober as possible. We don't show
Right.
the character pouring himself a glass of whiskey. He doesn't have time to pour a glass of whiskey. He's going to go
Right.
into the office. He's going to go in. He's not going to go manage his emotions. He's going to go into the office and try and contain his emotions while he does the next thing he needs to do to accomplish his goal, which is to make sure that there aren't any more of these nuclear weapons out there. That's his mission. And he's going to go.
That I don't like that as a mission, right? Because that's too that's not possible. That's not an attainable mission.
Well, he's going to try. He knows he wants to make sure that the fuel rods that he saw.
I think for him this is about finishing the mission that
Yeah.
started in Chernobyl.
Yes, it is. And that's my
Yeah.
point. Like, and no one's giving him that chance. He's going to go in and say, I can tell you where these fuel rods came from. I think we need to, and they're going to be like, get the, just, and they have to, and their job is to turn him right around and get him out. Like, and,
There's a little bit of like overlap in terms of the sentiment with the movie Goldeneye, right? And I don't know how familiar you are with it, but like when James Bond, played by Pierce Brosnan, is told by M, who is this was the first time M was being played by Judi Dench, God love her.
mm-hmm.
And she reveals that like the top name, we've pulled the file on anyone who would have had access or authority at Severnaya. Top name on the list is an old friend of yours, as I understand, and it's Ourumov, the guy who shot 006 Sean Bean in the first
Yep.
scene of the movie,
Yep.
kind of thing. And there's this whole talk about don't make it personal, and we need whatever our analysts say he sees himself as the next Iron Man of Russia, which is why our political analysts rule him out. He doesn't fit the profile of a traitor. And Pierce Brosnan gets all like, are these same analysts who said that Goldeneye couldn't even exist, and so blah 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 blah. And I think there's some overlap there because like it doesn't have to be personal exclusively, and it doesn't have to be professional exclusively.
That's
it
right.
can be both.
That's right. And at the same time, we don't need to lean too hard into it. I think so. And there's
Right.
some good editing in there too. I think so.
Oh, yeah.
For example, you've got this superior being like people are handling it. Like that's just, and then boom, you smash cut to the Americans in the helicopter. Like
Yes, exactly.
Oh, here we go. Like.
Well, I wouldn't go like Full Metal Jacket with that,
No,
but
but like it's a different vibe. It's a different thing. Like
it's a different. Well, yeah, it's loud. It's big. It's loud, and it's rough around the edges. Whereas like SAS would be very clean, very precise, right? There's precision in the SAS work, and and the USMC is just like crayons tank. Like.
And I think well, they're also not the army, they are the Marines. Like, so we have to, and this is a thing where I think you would get a lot of support from the military if you did it honestly. And the US Marine Corps, they are the professionals. They get, there's a reason why they get 90% of the combat missions and 10% of the budget. There's a reason why that happens. And there ready for this. And at the same time, they're talking with each other. It's a different conversation, and in they go, and they just get blasted. And then so you've covered basically 3 pieces of content. You've covered the mission into the ship. You've covered the attempt at a debriefing on Price's part, and then you've covered the up to the bomb itself and the
I mean, if I were to be
media center, which by the way is great for Americans because it is a media center. It's
right.
So much there.
Well, so if I were the one editing this, right, like I would be interweaving the USMC arc into everything. I wouldn't just be doing it in chunks, right? So maybe, and again, I'm just spitballing, like maybe if the very first thing we have, we start, Price is briefing his squad in the helicopter as they're flying over the Bering Strait. They do that mission, and then there's the discussion is like, all right, we got it, we're good, the world is safe, and we can have, like, we can be on Price and him having, like, him thinking very carefully about something, and then we cut away to the USMC,
Oh,
going all ooh-rah bombing into that very first, whatever the very first USMC mission is, which is, it's not Blackout. It's I think, I don't really, oh, it's Charlie Don't Surf. Charlie Don't Surf, I think, is the first one, which is, it's the helicopter mission. It's the helicopters as they're flying in to get to their LZs kind of thing.
I think
And
that's too much. I think it's too much. I think that I think
and that
uh you just broke. You broke the internet.
whoops.
So
I'm
so
here.
I think that I think that's way too much. I think it's very simple. I think that the work that Price does on the ship paves the way to the mission in with the bomb. I think that Price sets in motion the intelligence work that gets the Americans
Why
killed.
does it need to be so lean? I guess that's my question, right? Like,
Because this isn't
it's not an
because
original IP.
well, no, it's not, but my point is this is 30 minutes of screen time.
Well, why not give it 35 or 40 and have, like, again, I'm asking, like, why does this have to be a 2 hour movie? Why can't this be a 2.5 hour movie?
I think that I think that
All I'm saying is I just think there's more than enough meat. I'm not saying that we're gonna have to just add fluff and and
no, no,
and,
no,
and
no.
gild lilies
That's
to
not my
get it to the
concern.
length.
My concern is
Yeah.
that the story itself is in it is fundamentally an international thriller with
Yes.
with superhero level special effects. That's what it is.
Well, I
And
would say with Mission Impossible level
yeah,
special effects.
fair enough.
Yeah.
But even
Yeah.
more than Mission Impossible because we're dealing with like
I don't
massive
know about that.
we're we blow up something huge at least once every act. We don't build up
Yes.
to the huge stunt. We have huge stunts all the way through the movie.
So
So
do Mission Impossible and James Bond movies, kind of thing.
yeah, but even then, like the Mission Impossible movies do exactly the thing we were just talking about, where they write themselves into a situation where you have to run down a building.
Oh,
Like
right. I agree
like
with that, and I'm not going to say, like, oh my God, these sandstorms. Enough with the sandstorms.
right.
Holy Christ, we don't need sandstorms. We don't need to just make it harder for the characters just so that we can make it harder for the characters. I'm not saying that, but I think that there is compelling, riveting story that can be interposed with
Yes.
insane
No.
action,
Yes.
and that it will, I think that this is a 150-page script.
My
Maybe
point
it's not
is
150 pages because car
my
chases are like
point is
what,
my point is this.
3/8.
My point is this. This is going to be an exhausting movie to watch. And it's exciting, but the
Why
level of
exhausting?
because it's going to be constant stimulation. And
But that, oh no, but that's why I want those moments of story, right?
what
To
I'm
to
saying
give
is
the audience a respite.
what I'm saying is you wouldn't want Crank to be longer than 90 minutes.
Yeah, but I don't see this as Crank,
No, but it's
right?
got
Like,
it's a level of intensity that maintains itself uniformly. My point about the Mission Impossible thing and the writing is that before you get to the part where they have to run down a building, even though that's not the biggest stunt in the movie or whatever, the reason why I'm making that case is because they have 20 minutes of okay, so we're going to be running down a movie in 20 minutes. Get your popcorn, relax, like, and then it's and the
oh,
stories and
right.
the
Yeah,
and
Mission Impossible is, it's like half telling, it's exposing what the mission is going to do, and then the other half is doing the mission.
so
Yeah.
so this isn't
But
that. This is like,
I agree. I
oh
don't
shit,
think
the
this is
elevator,
that.
oh the helicopter's crashing, oh the this, oh the that, like all the way through, like, and and I think that when you see a movie that really carries a running time that's longer than 2 hours, it does it through um, a nice, stable combination of really strong, intimate arcs. Like really, and I don't mean like
That's what I'm
buddy.
saying. Like, why can't this movie do that?
Well, I'm saying
This
like,
movie totally could.
well, when I even Armageddon had Liv Tyler for this reason. Like, I'm not saying these guys. I'm not saying that
Yeah.
guys
Yeah.
like, and that
This was a conversation I had with my composer yesterday. We were talking about Armageddon. I think Liv Tyler might actually be the only character in that movie that actually has like a character arc.
mhm. And
Because
my
she has a very clear want and goal, which is to marry Ben Affleck and have him return home safe, and she'll do everything she can to help assist that. And like that's actually a real character arc. And I was like, I think Liv Tyler is the only character in that movie that actually has like agency.
we've just put our finger on it.
Yeah.
These characters begin the movie as soldiers, and really good soldiers, and they
Right.
end the movie as better soldiers.
Yeah.
The arc isn't strong enough, no matter which way you slice it, to
Oh, but
to
but but
justify to justify.
but my point is that the character arc doesn't. Yes, they start the movie as soldiers and they end the movie as better soldiers, but it doesn't have to be only that.
No,
My
it doesn't.
point is that other things can be woven into that
Yes,
to make it like again, and honestly, I really want to lean into this, which is like the relationship between Price and Soap, which is not something that you would ever put in the video game because that's not why people are playing the game. People don't
right.
care about Price seeing Soap as a son figure and Soap being like, Soap suddenly having this character backstory is like, well, no, I'm in the SAS at 18 because I was an orphan and recruited by, British intelligence. Like, I'm not saying that's the right way to play it. I'm not trying to find the right way to play it because I'm not in the middle of writing the script. But my point is that there are very reasonable elements of backstory that can be incorporated that the game would never have been able to incorporate,
I
but
agree.
that don't like dishonor the game
I don't
kind of
think
thing.
I agree, but I think they'll make
Yeah.
the whole story feel bloated.
I
I
don't. I think they will elevate the story. I
I
think
think I think
if
that
they're done right.
I think if you acknowledge that those things are real and you deal with them in the moment, in the narrative that the game provides, if you let
Oh,
the
for sure.
like, I don't think you need to like have flashbacks of this is a
No,
grotesque example, but flashbacks of like Price pushing Soap on a swing and saying like you
no.
don't need the golden light, the this and the that to sell
Yeah.
the emotional relationship between the characters. And
That's
my
what
point,
that's what Michael Bay would do in Armageddon, kind of thing.
it is, and that would be a
Yeah.
huge mistake. So
Right. And
instead,
I'm not saying to do that.
then you don't need more running time for what you're talking about because it's all embedded in how the characters pursue their actions. And ultimately, I
I
think
just think there's enough substance in the actual narrative so that we don't have to be skipping over things, cutting fat out. I mean, especially after the nuke goes off.
all of these character developments that we're talking about are functions of how they achieve the mission and how they achieve an impossible mission. And I think, look, I haven't seen a Mission Impossible that justifies a running time of longer than 2 hours.
I was going to say, like, I mean, I know where the discussions about Mission Impossible are going with this, which is that, like, and you and I are both going to agree on this, is that yes, given the narratives of Mission Impossible, given what actually happens in terms of the plot, they are too long. Because what they do, and this is it's really annoying because I understand, like, back in the original television show of Mission Impossible kind of thing, 90s, and I might have even started in the 80s or earlier. I don't actually remember, but like increasing difficulty just for the sake of increasing difficulty, that was a thing back then because it was okay because that was kind of like the new spectacle that people couldn't conceive of. Like, if you're back in the 70s and all of a sudden, like, I remember there was one thing in Mission Impossible. It was one of the only episodes from the original TV show that I remember was one of the women has to pretend to be dead and gets locked in a morgue box, kind of like the shelving units that they pull out and push in
Yeah.
morgues. and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
And they had to do that because like they had to break into the morgue and they needed someone on the inside, but there was a time pressure, right? Because she would run out of oxygen to breathe in this box unless they got there in time, kind of thing. And so what they start doing is they start giving these unforeseen hurdles to the guys who are trying to get to her and get her out of the box so that she doesn't suffocate.
Even
And
the
they're just
puzzle of it
adding
itself, like why can't she let
right,
herself out of the box? And if they're gonna
right.
sneak in to let her out of the box, why do they need
But
her in the box in the first place? Like
in terms of like
because she's
convention,
because she's sneaking in something that's gonna make it possible for them to sneak in, and that whole thing,
right.
like
and
that.
and that's the
No,
whole thing. So but even back then, like if the characters who are trying to get to her in time like get a flat tire, or that's not what would happen, but like say they just got into a car accident,
yeah,
audiences loved that stuff back then because it was so the situation was already so glamorous and extraordinary because of the time period that it took, that the product was being shown in. That
yeah,
kind of thing was okay.
yeah.
But it's not, it's almost like like Mission Impossible is still trying to like honor that, but they're not doing it in intelligent, I don't want to say in intelligent ways, but in creatively pleasing ways. Like again, sandstorms, like, oh my god,
I
we
think it's
don't need sandstorms.
I think it's another tool thing. I think it was a gimmick at the time. It was a writing convention that people hadn't seen
Yeah,
before, and they weren't
it's like
accustomed
it's
to
like
it.
bullet time.
It's like bullet time. It's just another
It's
bullet.
it's a writer's version of bullet time.
It's just over. It's and it started with M Night Shyamalan, like
Yeah,
and his gimmicks, and everybody was like, oh, writers are magic too. And then yeah, well, you can only come
we
up with
saw
so
that
many
already.
creative. Yeah, exactly. So
Right.
now we're
And,
over it. And but
and so I agree with about like I don't think any of these newer Mission Impossible should be over 2 hours. But that said, Mission Impossible 3, maybe you could justify it. But
I don't think
nah,
it was.
certainly
I
not
don't think it was. I don't think it was over 2 hours.
Mission Impossible 3.
Yeah.
Survey says, where's the runtime? Runtime, I have to click on the IMDb actually. 2 hours and 6 minutes.
Okay.
But maybe that might include titles. So
It does
that might
include
include
credits.
titles, to be fair.
So
Um,
so
okay.
and this is what I'm getting at is that the emotional arcs of these characters. Yes, we want there to be a strong emotional arc of them becoming better soldiers and accomplishing this impossible mission, but it is at the
Yeah.
end of the day about rounding up stray nukes. That is what the movie is about. It's just that they're not doing it in time.
And
And
what I'm saying is that it is about that, but it can also be about more than that without it being offensive or distracting or diverting or
right.
any of the bad things.
But if we make it about more than that, like fundamentally, just so that we can have a bigger narrative, then we are actually just creating that extra story to justify the runtime. When in actuality, what we need is to make to make emotionally the best use of the runtime we have. I think you want this movie. You are making a movie about like this movie is
I don't see
piece.
any of what you're saying as mutually exclusive. I mean, I agree with what you're saying, but I don't see any of it as mutually exclusive.
What I'm saying is, at the core of this argument
Yeah,
is that a movie is about the efforts of the protagonist to accomplish the protagonist's goal.
absolutely.
This is about Pierce's efforts to finish what he started in Chernobyl. That's it.
Right.
He's looking for what
At the
became.
beginning of the movie. Yes.
He is at the end of the movie. He's taking out a rogue nation because the rogue nation is what became of the fuel rods.
Yes.
And
And I'm not saying that we would ever leave that storyline. That's the main line.
and what I'm
No
saying
question.
and what I'm saying is that emotional arc should be as strong and as emotionally satisfying as it can possibly be, but it will never not be that
Oh.
arc.
I think maybe I understand what you're saying. I think what you're saying is never remove any emotional power from the A story just so you can give some to the B story.
Yes.
Hmm.
And if we don't do that, the like
Can I ask why that is necessary? I guess. Like, why is it so important that the characters don't learn things about themselves throughout the course of a narrative and realize that, yes, the A story, absolutely, this is the goal and this is important, but maybe there are other things that deserve my attention and emotion. And I don't also don't necessarily think that like emotion is the zero sum
because
game.
then you're not watching, then you're waiting for something to happen.
Hmm.
That story becomes a reaction to events. The plot has given the character catharsis. We are no longer watching them try to achieve their goal. We're watching them wash along the river of story that they're floating on.
Well, then let me ask, right? If Price's goal singularly is, essentially finishing the Chernobyl mission, which he didn't, how can we justifiably assert that Price actually has this attitude and cares about, his team being the best and the most capable team? Because that is totally divorced from the Chernobyl mission. That is a totally separate
it is
thing.
And characters are about their mission, but they're not just informed by their mission. So
Correct.
Price is so this is a window into Price as a character.
Right.
Okay. So he is probably focused on his team building for the same reason that he's interested in pursuing the Chernobyl mission. He values his professionalism. He values his ability to do things the right way. And ultimately, if he's going to lead a team, he's going to serve as an example to his government. He's going to serve as an example to his fellow special operatives, and he's going to serve as an example to the people under him. And the whole reason why he wants to finish the Chernobyl, it's unfinished business for him. He is not satisfied with the outcome. He does not believe that he could. He's probably got a medal for it, and he threw it away.
To be fair, in the game, he actually does. It is said in the gameplay that he thought that even though he didn't hit Zakhaev in the head or anything like that, he knows he hit him in the arm and blew his arm off. But what they say is what they even say in that whole thing. I think Shepard is a spotter for that mission actually. And Shepard says is no one will be able to survive that. He'll bleed out in a minute.
And I can just imagine in that moment Price being like,
right.
That's a good theory.
Or maybe Price arguing no, we need to stay and confirm the kill or something, because that confirming the kill is a very that's a very rigorous you confirm the kill kind of thing.
Yep.
In the military. But Shepard's no, we they know where we are. We got to get the hell out of here. And so maybe there in the game the assumption was that Zakhaev was killed by Price in Chernobyl. Yes. And then they learn that he's alive, which is kind of, again, that's like the 24 Jack Bauer thing in the first season with Victor, whatever the guy's name was.
I think it's okay to just let Price not be satisfied with that intel. It's okay for Price to just be that's an assumption that I don't.
Okay. Yeah. That is a creative liberty I would totally be okay with taking.
I think that there's the game does not make a distinction between Price's understanding of the situation and the intelligence that was gathered.
I agree with that.
And so, just because that was the consensus does not mean that that's Price's opinion. And
here's, I guess, I mean, I don't disagree.
And even if I was Price, and if I was debriefing somebody, I would say we all thought that Zakhaev was dead, and I could say that for any number of different reasons. I might be saying it because I wanted to, because people told me that, and I started telling myself that,
right.
And I never really bought it, but I'm
right.
And I'm still trying to buy it now, so I'm saying it to you. There's different reasons for saying that. So ultimately, as we've said, Price's motivations. But I think
so. Let me ask a question here, because part of my, I think difficulty in just accepting that there is no need to make, I guess, strong intercharacter moments in this.
I think they'll emerge naturally. I think they'll emerge.
Well, okay, so right, and that's the question I'm about to ask has to do with that, right?
Yeah.
So in the game, in the actual gameplay, we are Soap.
Yes.
Soap doesn't have dialogue.
Right.
Because we are Soap. It's just other characters speaking to us and expositing things to us. And Soap, it never has dialogue. It's Link in the Zelda games kind of thing. Characters speak to Link. Link never speaks. So clearly Soap has to have that. Soap can't just be a mute kind of thing.
I'm gonna go ahead
And,
and argue that actually maybe Soap shuts up and listens. Maybe, I mean, now he has to actually answer commands. He has to say yes sir. He has to say no sir.
right.
Like,
So I like that, and that's kind of where I was going with this a little bit. Right. Price is used to, at a minimum, right, having to explain himself. Sometimes he has to actually, advocate for himself in an angry and heated way, and sometimes, but like at the minimum, right, he's got to explain to his men why they're doing what they're going to do.
mm-hmm.
So he's very used to always having to explain himself, and then Soap comes along and Soap doesn't make him explain shit. Soap just accepts his leadership.
Yep.
You cannot tell me that would make a human being think. It would make Price think. It would make the character be like, this is different. This is interesting. What is it about this that is... how am I supposed to respond to this emotionally? How am I supposed to respond? I think there's like a huge psychological element here that and does the movie have to have it? No. Is it necessary for the movie? No. But I think there is so much opportunity here to elevate, and that's my buzzword of the year.
Agree with you.
Is elevate.
I absolutely agree with you. I think that
Yeah.
and I think that any effort to accomplish something challenging with people who are figuring it out as you go, and these guys are I mean, they're all trained to do specific things, but it's the nature of special ops work that you are going to be constantly putting yourself in situations that demand skills that you don't have. Like,
oh no, they have no. That is not reality. Reality is special ops only put themselves in situations that they firmly believe they are capable of controlling based on their skill set. That is like a very standard operating procedure for all JSOC things. It's all about risk management and risk mitigation.
Okay.
I say that I mean, again, I wasn't in JSOC, but in my stunt training, I learned tactical and military movement from a guy who trains JSOC operatives.
Yes.
Kind of thing. There is a very specific thing about, and again, one thing that this movie cannot Hollywoodize the process.
Yeah, I agree
right.
With you. I agree.
It has to match the reality of its day, which is 2011. Yep. Right. We're not making it real for today. We're not making it something that's not real at all. We're not making it real for the 1700s. Yeah. It has to be authentic to the period of it. And I mean, look, this is slightly on a tangent, but there is a very famous story that amongst the special operatives, and even, it's a public thing. So it's known that the JSOC instructor told us, during one of these training sessions about the hostage crisis at the embassy in, I want to say it was Iran, in, I think it was the late 70s or...
That story.
The Argo story. The Marine, I believe it was Marines, right? It wasn't, or no, it was SEALs. It was the Navy SEALs. They built a replica of the embassy, it was a joint forces operation between the SEALs and the SAS. If I'm remembering this correctly, I might mix up a couple of the details. They rebuilt the interior of the embassy in this huge warehouse in England, and they did the mission, the exact mission, every single scenario they could think of that might possibly happen over 3 weeks, day in, day out, 12 hours a day, just doing the mission with all of these different scenarios. Okay. And when it came time to actually do the mission, no casualties. Yep. Total success, and that is what they do. They do not go in blind if they can help it. They do not go in underskilled or underexperienced unless they have no alternative.
Yes.
They do not want to lose lives because honestly, as perhaps crass as it is for me to say, I think that probably what it boils down to is that the cost of those soldiers' lives is extremely high in
Yeah.
terms of money.
Yeah.
When you have operatives that are that skilled, I mean, you probably have invested millions of dollars into an individual to train them to get to that level of proficiency, and the
Yep.
government doesn't want to blow more money by having operatives die,
Yep.
kind of thing. And I'm sure there's more to it than that, and that's I'm sure a gross oversimplification on my
Well
part.
then, well
But
then, well then,
yeah,
those details of how Price manages the battlefield are going to reflect in very subtle and procedural ways
yes,
his care for the soldiers. He's still going to talk to one soldier differently than he talks to another, and at the same
yes,
time, he's the level of resolution on those differences is going to be smaller because
and this is also why I think there is so much potential for a really potent Soap and Price dynamic.
I think so. I absolutely agree. I 100% agree with that, and I think
A,
that
a B story, right? Like,
well, I don't think you again, I think the B story is woven into the A story. I don't think you need um to take have Price take Soap out for a glass of beer between missions or that's not what's needed.
oh, no. I'm not talking. No, no. That is like an Armageddon thing, right?
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
that's all. No, we don't need that. And I'm not talking about any of that. But I am saying like
There's an arc to their relationship within the movie and
yes,
that is
that's
absolutely
that's natural too
yeah.
because Soap
Yeah.
is the new guy,
Yeah.
right? So
Yep.
there's a new dynamic that needs to be established, not but just between Soap and Price, but between Soap and all of the members of the unit,
Yep.
kind of thing, and
Yep.
Gaz and all of them.
Yep.
And I,
Yep.
I think that there is so much. And look, I know you and I have talked about Zero Dark 30,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
But Zero Dark 30 was, from my what I have been told by people who would know such things, very accurate in depicting operational procedure and like how the members of the SEAL team, what their camaraderie is, like what their
Mhm.
fraternity is with each other, right? Because it's even in Zero Dark 30, it's very clear, like, yeah, they're soldiers, they're jugheads, but like they also do feel certain ways about each other and about things. Like it's very obvious that they're not, yeah, like what's that scene when Jessica Chastain is kind of like she's standing with the sunglasses right before they're about to do the mission, and the Chris Pratt and the commanding officer, they're playing horseshoes, and
Yeah.
then and Chris Pratt has the character has the line which is like, look, if all is standing between me and getting ass raped in a Pakistani prison is her word, I'm cool with it. And so they have that, but when they're in the mission,
Yeah.
it's so clear that there is no time for F around and find out. And
Yes.
like,
Yes.
there's very they care about each other. They have each other's backs.
Yes.
And that is so critical. And
I agree.
my point in this is that because this is, and again I agree with you, a super action driven movie,
Mhm.
lots of stimulus, but I don't think it needs to exclusively be stimulus because you can have action
Mhm.
that causes reaction. I feel like, and I'm not talking about like big internal emotional changes of character reaction, but again, soldiers have to react to situations. That's part of the job. It's
Well,
like what you
sure, but
said when we talk about the Martian with
mhm.
being up in Mars, kind of thing. And there is an expectation that you are going to encounter things you can't plan for necessarily, and that you have to have the skills to react to them. But having the skills to react to them and how one reacts to them emotionally are not necessarily the same thing.
No, they're not. And what I'm saying, all I'm saying is that you don't need to take a moment for those reactions. You don't
I
need to
agree.
you don't need to separate the reaction from the effort because the truth is like
I agree.
a
I
very
agree. I
a,
think the reaction can be
if
part of the effort.
if the soldier, let's say there's a soldier and let's say so one of the things that I'm always trying to explain to film investors is that habit is what gets movies made. And specifically, the way that I explain that is by explaining to them that risk is managed specifically through habit.
I'm going to be writing this down, so give me 1 second.
Okay.
I need to be paying attention on how to speak to investors.
Film
Gets movies made.
Yep. Film is a risk-intensive environment, and habit is the
Yep.
only way to effectively manage risk. And
That's it.
and the way that I explain this to investors is by saying, if you were paying me to rob a bank in Beirut, you wouldn't hire the kid with an amazing idea or the flashiest idea. You wouldn't want that. You would want the three people who have been taking jobs living on the beach in between the bank and the place where we're going to be moving the money. You want the people who know the cover and concealment in that area intimately and who know all the firing positions, because you and who are on.
It should be boring, actually.
Yes, you want people,
it should be boring.
You want people whose bodies are conditioned to solve the problems of that specific battlefield as effectively as possible, because if they can do
because
that,
you want them to remain calm and almost bored. And this is why like heist movies, I think, are like because it's always about flashiness and the ingenuity of the idea. And the truth of the matter is like, no, that's not
how crime works.
Right. Well, yeah, you want it to be. Can I honestly? This blew my mind when I heard about this like a few months ago.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, in California, there over the past, I don't know, 10 plus something years, I guess, there have been like a string of robberies, typically armored truck. But I think they've actually hit banks before, and it has never made the media because they've always been successful. And I'm like, dude, this is making me think that like this kind of crazy stuff is happening a lot more regularly than we think, and it's just not being publicized because media, society, anyone in power wouldn't want to advertise that people can actually get away with this stuff. And the way that they're getting away with it isn't by Ocean's 11ing it. It's by doing it so procedurally and so boring. It's got to just be standard operating procedure, and they just know exactly how to execute it in a way that's like it's unbeatable kind of thing. And if you can have that kind of boring, and again, it's clear, like, whoever is doing these things, and they're still out there, right? As I heard about, there was this armored vehicle robbery. It was a few months ago, and I have friends who are regional to it in California, and it made the regional news, the local and regional news, but it certainly didn't make, I would have never heard about it, me being on the East Coast. And they're like, yeah, like, this is actually a thing. This has been going on for years. And it's just, and I'm like, oh my God. And that's what it is. Whoever's doing this, they've taken their ego out of the equation. They don't care about, leaving a calling card or name recognition. It's not the serial killer thing where they need to take credit for what they're doing.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
They're just about, what are they? It's what you said. Excellence in craft, excellence in community.
Yep.
That's what they're doing.
Yep.
And it blew my mind.
I was like, to habit. You reduce it to habit.
You reduce it to habit.
It's just like rehearsing a show, because at the end of the day, if all the things that you know are going to happen are already dealt with by the things you're already going to do, then you can focus on the unique situations that come up over the course of that process. If, on the other hand, you are overwhelmed by the things that were obviously going to happen, then you are never going to get to focus on the unique situations. Anytime I hear someone say, no one understands what makes a movie successful.
Oh, that blows my mind. It's like, how do you not understand what makes a movie successful?
When someone says that, that's what you're hearing is the fog of war.
Yeah.
What you're hearing is them walking out on a battlefield and hearing gunfire and getting shell shocked, and no one has time for that shit. No one has time. If you have been doing shows like as long as I have, it's obvious. Like, it's never a surprise.
I haven't gotten to do shows like you have, and it's obvious to me. What
I'm saying is, a lot of the things that people talk about, a lot of the things that seem very observable, are not necessarily the reason. Like, it always comes down to strength and craft and strength and community. It comes down to those two. Where did the craft fail? Where did the community fail? That's it. Every time. Every time. And it's like, well, when I started working in film finance, I was working. I'm not going to sit here and name names, but we had a couple of movies come out. The people that I was working with in the circle of producers that I was working on, And I remember we were 3 weeks from a release of something that I was particularly interested in seeing succeed. And I was like, we haven't been doing this, we haven't been doing that. And they're like, the marketing people, they're going to take, you don't have to worry about any of that. And I'm like, the
Oh,
show,
yeah, they're gonna take it to the focus groups, right?
it wasn't that exactly. It
You know.
was faith in a marketing, it's a third party marketing team, and this and that. That's just what you hire, and this is all part of the process. And I'm like, there's two kinds of shows, guys.
Hmm.
There's the show where you audition and you're very excited and you're like, hey, can I talk about this on my social media? They're like, absolutely. And then everyone's talking about the show, and that takes and throughout the entire rehearsal process. Maybe 4 months later, you'll open. Everyone's been talking about it, and then you have a full 90-seat theater. And then there's the show where that doesn't happen. People maybe are a little more tight-lipped, probably because they're not as confident in the experience. And guess what? It's the director's mom in the audience that night, and that's it. Like those, and there's not a big gap. Like that, there's not a lot of middle ground there. It's one of those two shows, and a movie only differs in the number of seats you need to fill. It's 5 shows a
Right.
day, 7 days a week, with a couple of hundred seats in the house. So it's not going to be 4 weeks. It's going to be you going to touring, like we said. Like one of the things that they don't talk about in Hollywood as much as they need to is touring. If you're a band, you can't stay in your home city. You have to go tour to sell CDs.
Right.
If you're a comic, you need to hit other cities and find out where you play and where the
Right.
comedy clubs are.
It's how you build awareness.
Even sports
Yeah.
teams do not stay in their own city. They go from city to city. You only see pictures of athletes in one of three situations. You only see an athlete in the game or practicing or at the hospital saying hi to the kids who couldn't make it to the game.
Well, you see them in
That's
press conferences.
Yeah, okay, but
Yeah.
those are the three situations where athletes get photographed.
Right.
It's either expanding the community or expanding their craft, and that's it. And you have
Well,
to,
well, yeah, a press conference
yep,
very clearly is expanding the community.
yep,
So, like, yeah,
and
yeah. I mean,
and you have to expand the community. You have to tour, and yet filmmakers have this thought about festivals like, um, it's where I'm going to go to get my distribution deal. I'm not interested in that festival. They don't have this and that, and it's like you don't know if people like you in Kansas or not. Like, go to Kansas, show your movie.
I know people like me in
Well,
Kansas.
yeah, I know you do, but you understand what I'm
Because
saying. Like,
for people who don't know, I
no,
shot a project in Kansas,
but
so
what I'm saying is, like,
people
what I'm
like me in
saying is, like,
Kansas.
most filmmakers would take one glance at the, let's say, the Wichita International Film Festival and say,
Hmm.
"Nah, I'm good." And that's not. You need to go out
Yeah.
and you need to find these people, and then you need to stay on tour every year. You have to have a new movie so you can tour the next year. So
So
you
actually, interesting question, which has nothing really to do with Call of Duty, but like, what would you say then? Like, because obviously touring is not a minimal time expenditure
no,
kind of thing. But making a movie is also very much not a minimal time expenditure. So
right,
how are you able to like balance that walk and chew gum where you're
and
like
you
you're
have it.
doing the touring and you still have your next project in development and you get it into pre and then you're obviously you can't be touring while you're in production. No one could be touring while they're in
No,
production.
and
But
and
like
and, and shows don't tour when they're in rehearsal, and that's fine.
right,
Like that's what that process is. But as soon as the show's ready, you need to get it out there. And so
right.
much of development is, I mean, in this day and age, with everything being as very comfortably e-commutable and like and you don't have to be in Los Angeles all the time. You should be hitting as many festivals as you can, and
Right.
and you should.
Would you say go to festivals even if you don't have a project just to try and build community?
I don't think it's a bad idea. I
Yeah.
think it's easier to finance it if you have a project. But but
Right.
but I think that that's a good idea in general. And I think you can use the internet for these things too, but the point is you have to be putting yourself out there at all times.
Yeah.
I forgot how we got on this tangent. But how does this
We
pertain to
were
Call of
talking
Duty?
about movies that like how when people are like, I don't understand, like what makes a good movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So all of these things just become habit, and you start to see the problems with that process habitually and identify them. And you don't want to do business with people who don't have those habits. And when people do have those habits, they become reliable whether or not they have a good idea, whether or not their personality conflicts with yours almost doesn't matter because their work isn't going to conflict with yours. And you'll find
I'm very interested to at some point, this is beyond the scope of today, but I would love to hear from you at some point how that plays with the deal that you and I talked about a couple of days ago, which I did turn down, a kind of thing. So I'm curious to hear at some point how that
It
plays
is
with that, because I would have
anytime
been like, wasn't that like a super boring thing technically, habitual thing
it
that they were
was
doing
it
that was like
was it
functional?
was it was not. So there are lots of people with
Yeah.
with finding shortcuts to this process
Right. Yeah.
is not respecting the risk.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. Yeah.
like
Okay. Good call. Good
like
call.
like don't don't make you gotta kiss it. Keep it simple, stupid. Like if you are robbing
Right.
a bank in Beirut, you don't try to be smarter than the bank.
Right. It would be like if like Matrix technology were a thing and you could just, plug in and learn kung fu, right? Like Neo does. But then like the USMC was just like, okay, we're going to go on a special operations where you guys all need to know kung fu, and they just feed that in, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, you're good to go. But it's like you might know you might know the technique. That doesn't mean you've been in a fight and you know how to react in a fight, like, or how
Yep,
you are emotionally and psychologically going to react
yep,
in a fight, kind of thing.
yep.
It's very different.
What does Mike
So
Tyson
yeah,
say? What's Mike Tyson's most famous quote?
I didn't bite his ear.
No. Everyone's
I
got a
don't.
plan until they get punched.
Right, everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the face. Yep. Honestly, I used to be a boxer, right? I gold
Yep.
gloves like way back in the day. Honestly, it was so funny for me because I never had a plan going into a fight. I couldn't. I had so much anxiety. I really did. I had so much anxiety. Anytime I was going to compete back then, it's like I know I've been training. Oh my god, I have so much anxiety. That first time I get punched in the face, I was like, oh, he didn't hit that hard. Okay, I'm good. And like, and then like all the anxiety would go away, and then I would start to formulate a plan in the fight, kind of thing.
Your habits will
Because I
bear
was
you out. Your habits will bear you out because
right.
they give you the space to observe things. They give you the space to see what. Because in martial arts, the more you have, the more habits you have, the more
Yeah.
time slows down for you. The more
Yes. Yeah.
habits you
Yeah.
have, the more you see what's about to
Because
happen.
you don't have to think
That's
about
right.
anything. You know.
That's right. That's
It's the
right.
same, honestly, and that's truthfully, that's also true in chess,
It's also
right?
true, and it's also true in
Yeah.
filmmaking,
Right.
and in
And
show business. And
you
so,
encounter positions that you've seen before, and you're like, oh yeah, I know I can't do this here, or I know I have to do this here, and you just do it, and you don't have to extrapolate it. You don't have to try and
yep.
scenarioize it, whatever that would be. And like yeah, you just see it and you know the right thing to do because it's what works.
So anytime someone says, "Don't worry about all what we just said. Don't worry about all that. Here's how the world works,"
Uh,
which is going back to our conversation the other day, exactly what was happening.
right,
Don't worry about all
right,
that. Here's how the
yeah,
world works.
yeah.
And it's
You're
like
right. You're absolutely correct. By the way.
one gunshot on that battlefield, and all of you are going to stand there like morons waiting to get shot. I want the
hmm
people who are finding cover and concealment and taking care of business and who are not thinking about the gunshot. They're thinking about the mission and they're dealing with the gunshot as they
Well,
take care of it.
again, that's like I don't remember if you and I have talked about this. I think I probably mentioned it at some point, but for a while I haven't been in a while, but I was doing like free soloing because I'm a rock climber and
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. And and this is the key thing, right? With free soloing, people are like, "Oh my god, like why would you do that? Like aren't you terrified? Isn't it so dangerous?" And I'm like, "Of course I'm terrified." Right? Like, how could I not be terrified? And it's the same thing. And if you're on a battlefield, you could be the most battle hardened person in the world. But if someone starts shooting at you, you get scared. The
Yeah.
difference is how we react to the emotion, kind
And
of
yet
thing.
how we
Yeah.
use our habits in that moment. You can be
Correct.
scared and find cover and concealment. You can also be
You
scared and
there's
get
no way
shot.
you're not going to be scared.
Right,
And this
exactly.
is the thing. It's not an exercise in learning how to suppress or defeat the fear, the emotion, whatever it is that
Correct.
suddenly has attacked you
It's
internally.
knowing the confidence of knowing that even if
Yes.
you're scared, your body is going to find the cover and concealment that's going to
Yeah.
keep you safe. So your brain can figure out what to do about this shooter and whether
It's
or not
compartmentalization.
it's compartmentalization. So you can,
Yeah.
and you're getting to the bank. You may decide that shooter's not even a problem.
Right.
You may decide like you know what? In finding cover and concealment, I've actually put enough between myself and the shooter that this is no longer an issue, and I'm not going to take the time to stop their radio because they've already called it in. So I'm just going to
Right.
go ahead. Like, you may not even deal with the shooter, or you may decide that that shooter needs to get out of your way. Either way, you're making that decision because you're getting to the vault, as opposed.
It's an informed decision as opposed to a reflexive one.
Yep, which
Yeah.
means the reflex doesn't exist in this movie.
So my question to that, because yeah, I mean, I ultimately we were going to get back to this, is like with Soap being the FNG, and you know, I clear in the game even right, like the cargo ship mission, that is Soap's first operation.
Soap is going to need a little bit of guidance in terms of translating his training into actual battlefield experience. But Soap is also way more highly trained than even a standard,
Okay.
even a jarhead. Like, Soap is as prepared as he can possibly be to hit this battlefield, which means Soap has been in live fire exercises. Thank you so much. Soap has been
Yeah, yeah. You
like
don't end up in a special operations unit if you've never seen combat, for sure.
so Soap's reflexes and habits when it comes to live fire are going. Now, he may sweat more than the other guys. He may have more fear than the other guys. He may care about his life more than the other guys.
Right.
You know, at the same
I
time,
get what you're saying. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, because when we actually like untangle everything and filter it all like this, now I'm starting to think I'm just like, yeah, there wouldn't be, there is no room for emotional reaction on a
he
battlefield.
he doesn't need to be hugged. He doesn't need to be patted on the head. He's a soldier, and he's a good one.
You know, yeah, I agree, right?
Now,
But
I'm
I
not
also
saying,
wonder like how, you know, it's funny that you say that
but here's the other thing that's going to
because
happen. Here's the other thing that's going to happen, Greg. Here's the other thing that's going to
okay,
happen because you've got these guys who are so finely tuned.
right,
Price and Gaz are going to notice the little things going on with Soap that the audience wouldn't necessarily notice. They're going to say, "Oh shit, Soap is his hands a little he's tremors on or something like, hey Soap."
right,
And so
right.
one of them's going to turn to Soap and say, "Hey Soap, you can do this. Hey Soap, is it too loud? You can do this. Hey Soap, put on your ear protection. Hey Soap, do
Well,
this."
to me, the most famous example of that is in Saving Private Ryan, actually. And it's not the moment. I bet you wouldn't be able to guess the moment I'm going to say.
It should be small.
Um,
It should be very small.
I mean, it's a piece of dialogue,
Yeah.
actually. So, I mean, you've seen the movie, right? You're very familiar with it.
Yeah.
You remember that they're walking through. They've at this point Vin Diesel has already died, and they come across the German MG nest, right?
Yes. Yes.
And they're making and Tom Hanks is making the decision that they are going to take it, even though it actually has nothing to do with their mission of finding Matt Damon and
Yeah.
getting him home. And there's this whole argument about it. And then Mike, his sergeant, they're just like, all right, and Tom is like, all right, who's going to go left? Who's going to go up the middle? Who's going to go right? And Mike is like, you know, maybe I should go up the middle, sir. And Tom is just like, no, no, no. With the way you run, it's something like that. And then Mike says it again. And Tom Hanks looks at him and goes, why don't you shut up? Which is like, we've never heard his character talk like that to anyone throughout the whole movie. But it's perfect because that's the moment of leadership. That's the moment of like, this isn't a discussion. Yes, you guys are my family. Yes, you are all my sons. And I will treat you like that as often as I can. But now you need to shut up and
it's
let me
also
do
him
my
knowing
job.
how to talk to Mike as opposed to someone else. He
Correct.
wouldn't have
Yes.
had to say that to someone else. And so what I'm saying is you will see absolutely the relationship between these characters emerge through their efforts to and yes, you want to keep it as grounded and highly specific as possible. And
Yes.
and each of them is going to have their own arc. And the key to that arc is understanding the individual goals of these characters in a highly specific way. We know that Price is there in order to finish the mission that started in Chernobyl. No one else was there for that.
Right.
So
I mean, I'm pretty sure it was Shepard. I'm going to check that. But like Shepard isn't on these missions with them anymore.
that's
So it's
right.
like
That's right.
he's the general now. But I think that was the whole thing. Is like he is now the general that's kind of in. So actually, and that actually creates like this really interesting, these interesting moments. If Shepard is the general now, that is essentially Price's superior officer,
Mm-hmm.
and Price is the one who has to convince him to let him. But Shepard was the one who was there.
Yep.
So Shepard should know this and
And
be able to connect these
well,
dots.
it's doubly interesting because Shepard was the one in our conversation who said that he was dead. Shepard was the
Right.
one. Shepard was the one who pushed the narrative, and they both signed off on it. But Shepard became a general.
Oh, it's not Shepard. It's Captain McMillan.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay.
So
It was in General Shepard.
so the key to this whole thing is understanding the individual goals of these characters, right?
Yeah.
Soap's goal, and this is something that it's going to create very natural conflict, and that conflict doesn't need to be resolved in anything less than like just like course corrections even, right? But there is going to be conflict between Soap, who inevitably is trying to, I mean, why would you take this job if not to realize your potential? Why
Right.
would you take this job if not to prove what you can do? Like, why else do you get into special forces if you're not highly competitive? Right?
Right.
You need. So Soap is the kid who hasn't seen through that competition yet. Soap is looking to prove that he, on the first step of Soap's mission is to prove that he belongs here. That's the first step.
Right.
Like, and if he had this is his first mission, then he hasn't, and he may think that these guys accept him. He may know that, but he hasn't accepted it. He's got to go out there and show that like he is keeping Britain safe. He's got to earn the
So,
he's got to earn the
side,
taxpayers'
side,
trust.
brief side note about McMillan.
Yep.
In the lore, McMillan has actually risen to the position of Director of British Special Forces.
Okay.
So there's something there. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I agree. Like, so the thing about like Soap and Gaz, and I would honestly feel more comfortable if we could learn about more of the members of the unit, kind of thing. But maybe that's beyond the scope of the narrative and things like that. Did I just glitch out again?
You did.
Um,
I have a sneaky suspicion that um they have a fair amount of research and stuff written on these characters at Infinity Ward. I bet that they've got.
oh yeah, I'm sure
I bet
you'd
that.
have to. I
I
imagine.
bet that, and it would make
Would
those.
the audience care?
Well, here's the thing. They would care that we did the work of finding out.
Okay.
They might not
Yeah. I mean,
like.
I guess like, the truth of the matter is if you were like going to make the big announcement for the project, right? Let's say, it got greenlit, it got through development, it's in pre-production, you have your cast, maybe you haven't exactly shot it yet. And you're at that point, and then you do the big announcement at like, San Diego Comic-Con, right? Like one of those like again, like textbook kind of reveals
Mhm.
to the public, and you're able to then communicate to the public like we're going to be diving into character backstories, but we got these backstories from the Infinity Ward developers. Like this is the story that was there that they weren't able to share in the game. We're bringing it to you now. Yeah, maybe
and
that is very
and
positively received.
and then you tease lines of action out of those backstories. I'm a firm
Mm-hmm.
believer in any idea is potentially as good as any other. It's just a question of using
Yep.
it appropriately. So like, and so what does better service not just to the fans, but like for a second, let's take into account like this game was made in what 2011? Is that what you said?
Modern Warfare.
Yeah.
Modern Warfare. I know it takes place in 2011. But I don't believe.
It would have been contemporary. It's like reasonably contemporary to the time. So, so
It was announced. All right, it was a first-person shooter game for to break away from its World War II setting and set in the modern world. It was announced on April 12th, 2007, and was released on November 5th, 2007. Published by Activision, developed by Infinity Ward, and available on Windows, OS X, Xbox 360, and the PlayStation 3. Um,
so here's my point. That
uh,
was 2007. The gaming industry was very different, and writers were not respected.
yeah,
So
it was released in 2007, but the plot is actually it was so it was like 4 years in the future.
you take that and you put at the front of the movie based on characters created by boom 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 like What
Yeah,
what is that gonna mean to those writers? Like,
a
these are
lot,
a, a shitload.
a
Like,
lot.
never mind the residuals. Like,
Right.
there's
No,
there's
but emotion, like, that's very validating.
hugely
That's a
validating.
very validating thing. Yeah.
I think it's somebody else's story, it's somebody else's content. My job, if so, going to the development process, I think we both agree it would be a studio that came to it's a studio executive who
Yeah.
who probably knows has he's got friends, he's got a
Yep.
community, and he called somebody he knew at Infinity Ward or at Microsoft or at Xbox and said, "Hey, let's do something." And he's been thinking about this for a long time. He has no idea what makes a good movie, or he wouldn't have wanted this content in the first place. But he went and got content that means a lot to him. He's probably a brosif because this is Call of Duty,
Hmm.
and ultimately, maybe he's very committed to esports or something. But but this is somebody who has a passion for this because it would take a shitload to get these licenses unlocked. And he's gone and done that work. And now he's coming to a bunch of screenwriters and saying, let's make it work. Let's do this amazing thing. And it's like, it's not, oh God. Like, okay. But at that point, here we are in this situation. And we have to decide if we're going to be useful to this production or not. And if we are going to be
Right.
useful, we need to be fucking useful. Pardon
Right.
my French. So, right? So if we're going to go in there, let's make a great Call of Duty movie, which of course is exactly what the executive is saying. And he's going to say, how hard is it? The story's already done and blah, blah, blah. Okay. Like, but all this conversation that we're having, obviously, like, this person's going to learn a lot about screenwriting and a lot about dramatic structure through this process, for sure. But they're going to come in with a lot of confidence and they're going to come in with a lot of reassurances about the process. We can,
Yeah.
we can allay those concerns and build confidence in the entire production team by whenever possible leaning on the work that's already been done. And that means, and it doesn't make the work that we have to do smaller or less. It actually makes it more in a lot of cases because we have to go and do the research. And not just with the JSOC guys, we have to find out what research wasn't done by Infinity Ward. What liberties did they take that we can't take? How does this all add up? But um, within that process, we go back, we find those initial backstories, and all of a sudden you've got people like at Infinity Ward and Xbox going like, wow, thanks. Like it's strength and craft, strength and community. I don't need my own ideas to make this movie stronger. I don't. I
Okay.
do need impeccable strength and craft and respecting the craft of the people who have already lent themselves to the project is absolutely like always the way to go. Always. You can't go
Still
wrong.
maintain that it can be over 2 hours without being bad.
I think you better understand
I do.
my and so make it concise because this is at the end of the day about soap's efforts to get these weapons back. It could be over 2 hours. And by the way, I would kill you if you said that at a development meeting because I think the executives' eyes would be like, yes, because there's an ego thing involved there.
If I said what, that it can be over 2 hours?
Yep. Because now he's going to stop thinking about making the story as lean as possible and as strong as possible, and he's going to start thinking about which director justifies a 2.5 hour movie, which director justifies a 3 hour
Mm. I think as a part of it is I also like I have the brain where I'm like, oh, I'm directing. And I
movie. Right.
think I'm not approaching this as just purely the writer. I am also approaching this as like a
Even
director.
if
So
that's the
maybe
case,
there's some of that, but yeah.
like if that's the case, you need to let go of all the moments that you think are going to be so powerful and start with the foundation, put the actors to work, and then shoot the best movie that you can shoot
Well,
and I don't think that
I was thinking about that exact thing that you just mentioned,
yeah.
like either yesterday or 2 days ago, which is like the moments, right? And
Mm-hmm.
how it's like it's so important not to marry yourself to the ideas of the moments
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that, because ultimately, like
It's a
it's
team
so much
effort.
more important. Right? It's a team effort, and it's so much more important for the characters to develop their own moments naturally, kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing. But the truth of the matter is, I don't know if I'm just like a weirdo. I mean, I'm clearly weird, but like, to me, it feels again. I don't. I don't necessarily think that those two things are mutually exclusive.
They're not. They're not. And
Yeah.
here's the thing. When we get stuck in like that idea that you can completely understand what's best for even 1 second of this movie, if you have a defined vision of X and Y and Z, you erode the opportunity to use the people that you hired who should be better at this than you are.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I think that maybe like I should perhaps clarify my opinion or like my own perception or opinion on what moments actually are. I think that I agree with you. I think that many writers don't have the same definition of moments that I do, and so maybe this is just I need to be clear about what the things mean to me individually. To me, a moment is an idea that if I have the opportunity to get to it, I would love to get to it. But if I can't get to it, I will figure out something else, kind of thing.
See, here's
Um,
my directing approach doesn't I understand what you're saying. I don't think
well, I'm just saying, as a writer, that has been largely very. I, don't know, I guess I can't really say I'm like, oh, I'm a super successful writer because I don't have empirical results to point at. But like, you know, it is. With the Glass Bridge, which is my project, and I know you haven't read it yet, but like, there are some moments in there that I knew, like, I was like, I would really like to be able to show this if I can. And through the natural course of writing it and building the narrative, the characters got to a point where I was like, yes, this fits, and I was able to include it. Um, but
yeah.
that's like for me, like the moment is I'm not married to it. There are plenty of other things where I'm like, oh man, I would love to have this moment. I would love to be able to get there. You know what, that actually happened in this where we did a table read, and a suggestion was proposed about how one character there was an arc issue, so it was like, well, we need to have character X do Y so Z can happen. And we all agreed that Z needed to happen because of how the interpersonal relationships were being built. Z not being an event, Z being like a dynamic kind of
Yeah.
thing. And it was like, so all right, well, so how do we have, if X is going to do Y, how do we have X do Y? And there were ideas tossed around, and like one of these things was just like, well, the character should just steal it. And I was like, oh, that is in character. Like that would work. If this character just stole the thing that so that she can do Y, which leads us to Z.
Hmm.
And I spent a couple days thinking about it, and I was like, you can't have her steal it. It works in a vacuum. Like it's on brand for the character, and it works in a vacuum. But it would have required me to redraft the entire story just so that I could have that moment. And I was like, no, no, this isn't. It was a good idea, and it wasn't out of character, but it doesn't function with what the other characters are doing. I'd have to change what the other characters are doing and have been doing organically in order to get this one moment to fit. And this is no, that's not. No, that's not it. So, like, to me, when I talk about a moment, I don't mean it as like, oh, I have to have it or I'm not going to make the project.
No, I didn't think that was the
You
case.
know,
I didn't think that was the case.
yeah,
What I am saying is I am in a position now where I have shot hundreds of hours of my own material.
yeah.
And I may have rehearsed thousands of hours of my own material. And what I've come to see through at least my own work is that that getting excited about an idea isn't useful. Like and I'm always if I trust the pro the more the higher the more I trust the fundamentals of the craft and the more I trust the process, the more surprised I will be by what ends up being significant. So there's
Yeah,
no
I mean, I agree with that because every once in a while something comes to me that's just like it's like the character spoke to me. It wasn't me trying to manufacture something. Like the character's intent or action spoke to me, and it like moves me to tears because I never would have thought about it unless I had allowed the character to build themselves naturally and things like that. It's not something that I could have blueprinted out or preconceived.
and I think
But
part of the difference here is that I don't see it as coming to me. Like I am pushing stuff to the actors and trying to give them the tools that they need to sculpt amazing performances. And I am working on in building a script. I'm working on building a performance superstructure that empowers each and every actor who walks in to do the best work that they can possibly do. And the more,
can I ask you about that
yeah,
actually,
yeah,
really quick?
yeah.
This is a conversation I had with Tom, my composer, yesterday. Actually, so it's very fresh in my mind still. Um, Tom was reading The Glass Bridge, and he had to finish like the last 20 pages or so while we were having drinks after walking like Central Park for like 7 miles.
Hmm.
And I was fine. I was like, I need to clear the notifications on my phone. And he, at one point, he shows me, a line on the phone. He's like, I love this, right? Like, I love how succinct and clear it is. It was a line that was like, it described the emotion of the character,
Hmm.
essentially. And it was very simple. And I did tell him, I was like, thank you for saying that. But the truth is that I do probably need to do less of that, to be honest. Um, Unless I have a very specific reason for the character feeling that way in that exact moment because it's critical to the character development or
And then
how the action
expressing that need,
progresses.
they not even
Yes,
feeling it, but needing to express it because it's going to help them achieve their goal. Character,
correct. Exactly.
yep.
Yeah, and yes, and that is where that's where I try to draw the limit for myself as a writer, kind of
Hmm.
thing. I try never to cross that line. But that's a very delicate like balance and tightrope to walk, I feel like.
I disagree, and I'll
Um,
tell you. I see. For me, it's not a line that I'm trying not to cross.
right.
It's just follow the action. So it's not that like I'm trying to keep my stuff in the neighborhood of follow the action. It's
Right,
that
but action can be followed in an infinite of ways, kind of thing.
absolutely, and that's the
Yeah,
joy of it is that characters are specific.
right.
Characters are all so the more specific I can be about who this character is and how they're trying to achieve what they
But is that not taking away an opportunity for the actor to elevate?
no, not at all.
I'm not positive
It
either
is
way about
the
that.
more specific a character actors can always find deeper levels of specificity. If you offer a
Sure.
highly specific character and they rehearse that character to the point where it's muscle memory, then
Which a good actor will do.
they
Yep.
absolutely will do.
Yep. Yep.
Then at that point, all of those details about that character have been internalized by the
Mm.
actor as habit, and they become
And they
uh,
can do the layering. They
and
can layer deeper.
that's
Yeah.
exactly right because
Okay.
if a character does something a certain way instead of another, that says there's an emotional experience that comes with that, which means that character has that emotion, which means that actor has that emotion. Now, maybe also you didn't know that there's more than one emotion or more than one layer to that. Maybe they come at you and like, no, 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 he did this because of this, and you're like, oh my god, like,
So can I be honest real quick? I'm
yeah,
trying not to talk too much about my own
yeah,
stuff, but
yeah,
we did this the most recent table read this past Tuesday, and the girl who was reading for the lead actress,
hmm,
we were I what I do when we're done with the table reads is I do the round table thing. I go around the table in order and just like everyone, start with your own character. Tell me if you had any thoughts, comments on the character that you were, and then on the and then expand it, right? Like start small, get bigger into the general story, and if you have any
yeah,
thoughts about that, because I want to hear everything.
yeah,
The girl who was playing the lead character just like made this offhanded observation about the main character gets called up at one point by the essentially the supporting lead female out of nowhere, and they have history, and so it's like a very odd thing to happen. And the supporting character basically asks the lead if she would like to get coffee the next morning, kind of thing. And the lead character says yes, but because of who the lead character is this this girl 22-year-old girl who like doesn't know how to set boundaries. She, again, Northeastern raised, taught, women are better seen, not heard, and, just has this viewpoint of like, if I just give people what they want, they will leave me alone to let me do what I want, kind
Yeah.
of thing. So she agrees to go. But I had never taken that. I was like, I didn't have any specific reason or impetus or anything for Maggie, who's the lead, to agree to it. And then the actress who was reading for Maggie, she was like, yeah, I mean, Maggie's like actually probably doesn't want to go to this and is pretty reluctant, but again, just like goes anyway because she's feeling the pressure. And I stopped her. And I was like, holy shit. Yeah. That's it. Right? Because that's exactly the essence of the character.
Yeah.
And I had never seen it like that just because, again, it's the female-female dynamic, and it is supposed to be very different from the male-female dynamic, the way I drew it up. But I never saw that same kind of social anxiety and reflex that the lead female would have towards potentially other women who might have, caused her issues in the past. And she absolutely would.
Yeah.
She absolutely would, but that doesn't ever emerge. That never would have happened in the story had I not been specific in the writing about about her dynamic with the men in her life,
Yeah.
kind of thing. And the actor just discovered it, like didn't even realize it was a discovery. She thought that was just the way, and I was like, I never realized that, but yes.
Yep.
Yes, that's it. So and so yes, I agree with what you're saying.
So
That's
delving and specificity comes in all kinds of different forms. That's why we study the JSOC stuff. That's why we get into
specificity is important.
But it's also context, emotional context, where characters are coming from in their lives, what personal tools they have. We would want to know, like, what city Price was from and what city Soap was from, and like where in that city was Soap a hooligan or was he a good kid or what was he doing?
I have a question that I feel is actually like a very advanced craft question to ask here, kind of thing. But maybe it's not. I don't know. In terms of the specificity,
yeah,
right? What dictates how specific a writer should get?
The universe and the tone.
I mean, like those seem like obvious choices to me. It feels like it's got to be like maybe more nuanced than that.
It's not. It's not. We're so like one of the conversations that's going to be had,
right,
about Call of Duty and Modern Warfare is, to what extent is this a video game movie and to what extent is this a war movie? Because we need to know.
And also, I would actually parse that even further and say, what kind of war movie is it? Is it
it's a
slick? Well, no, but I mean, like, is it a slick precision special operations war movie, or is it that epic grand scale Lord of the Rings? And obviously there are flavors in between of them,
no,
right?
It is a Catherine Bigelow movie. It is like it is, and I'm not saying it's a Catherine Bigelow movie, but I'm saying it like would be stupid not to ask her.
For sure.
So you don't want.
But it's like, again, we agreed. Like the USMC arc, very different tonally than the SAS arc, of thing.
It absolutely.
And those are two different types of war stories. They're innately just different. Like, because again, you have Full Metal Panic, anime. Full Metal Jacket, right, is a very different war movie than I'm trying to think of like one of the more realistic, like, all right. So yeah, Full Metal Jacket, very different from Zero Dark 30. Okay. Very different war movies.
Here's the simple answer to that question is that this is a movie about squad tactics. It is.
Okay.
Now, we as writers do not need to decide how far away the camera gets. We don't need to decide how many Steadicam shots are in this. That's not the point.
Okay.
That's not our business. Okay? But from a scale and scope standpoint, we know that this is about Soap and Gaz and Price. That's what it's about.
Is it also a squad movie on the USMC side?
Yes.
I would say yes. Yeah.
It's a squad movie with lots of other guys in it. So like
Right. Right.
so so you're gonna shoot the USMC side a little bit more like Black Hawk Down than you shot
Yes.
like like
Zero Dark 30,
zero.
Jarhead, all
Yeah,
those, all those. Yeah.
and but that's all camera and storyboarding,
That
and
that's more in the aesthetic. That's beyond the scope of the writer.
that's beyond the
Yeah.
scope of the writer. So we don't necessarily have to
Yeah.
stress out about that. But but so we know that it is a squad based, highly tactical. Because that's the game. It has to be. So
Right.
the real question is really, how much does this universe bend to the game side of things? Because if there's a sense of pulp and ridiculousness to the characters, if this is a little bit more of, let's say, a John McTiernan movie, we need to know. If this is a
Right.
little, if there's an element of Predator to this, if there's an element of like the losers to this.
Well, I think the element of Predator would be like in the ghillie suit mission, right? Like that's
Oh
the
no.
Predator.
I mean like the stupid
Oh,
like
you mean the Arnold
yeah.
and the you son of a
Yeah.
bitch,
To what
like the
yeah, yeah.
Carl Weathers, Carl
Yeah, yeah,
Weathers,
yeah,
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 yeah, yeah, yeah. Like how
yeah.
much of that is in here? Because that is because video games and video game
Rocky.
writers, yeah,
Yeah.
they're channeling the movies that they grew up with when they write these games, and the extent to which that is an influence, because that's because that's a different movie
Yeah.
with a different internal logic. So the level of specificity in terms of what is achievable and what is not in the field, and therefore what people need to practice for. How much do you need to practice to do X and
And
Y
you're
and
right.
Z?
If you're gonna honor the game, you have to go back to the original writers.
So
You have to learn from them what the true essence of it is, kind of thing.
so there's an exactly, and there's an internal
Yeah.
logic. Now, yes, the overall arc of Price that we're talking about fits within the scope of Call of Duty. It does.
Right.
But the things that Price has to do in the battlefield are going to depend large. Now, there's a lot of breaching charges, so breaching charges are a thing. Yeah, nobody's kicking
Yeah.
down steel doors in this game, granted.
No.
But, but, like that being said, to what extent does the logic of the kicking down the steel doors? Because there's so much of that in Call of Duty, and
Right.
and it is because this isn't even Band of Brothers tonally. This is a little bit heightened,
Right.
at least a little bit heightened, and that's
It's
where
got to
we.
be a little. It's got. I would say a little bit heightened is the right amount, kind of thing.
So, but
Yeah.
what does that mean, and where are we talking? Because again, like there are
When I
procedures.
when I hear the word heightened, I think of it in the acting terms, which is like not heightened is like it's like drama, right? It's like super grounded, very realist. It doesn't mean it lacks dimensionality or
Okay.
depth or anything. It's just it's very practical. It's very pragmatic,
So there's
right?
a couple of so
Yeah.
there's a couple of things that means. That
Yeah.
means that characters are allowed to exercise a degree of emotional shorthand.
Sure. Yes. Yeah.
Because so all of a sudden,
Wait, in grounded or heightened? Sorry.
in heightened, there's a level
Yes.
of emotion.
Yes. I agree
Like
with that. Yes.
so for example, in the relationship between Price and so the things that Price so maybe there is a little bit of the jitters with Soap. Maybe Soap,
Yeah.
like you see what I'm saying, because we're not quite as grounded in the.
Well, that's exactly like the Tom Hanks thing that I described from Saving Private Ryan. That is very slightly heightened, right? Because Tom Hanks is basically he just looks at me and he's like,
Yes.
"Why don't you shut up?" Which is just
Yes.
like a big emotional like jump kind of thing, and there
This
is
is
absolutely emotional shorthand in that.
this is going to
Yeah,
be. I'm saying emotional shorthand with the audience. So for example,
I think it
like
applies there too.
but what I'm saying is I think that this is pulpier than this movie's like if we stick to the game, there's elements of
Oh, I
pulp.
think it needs to be more heightened than Saving Private Ryan. That I
Yes.
agree with. Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. I was
so
just using that one moment as an example, kind of thing.
so the universe determines the level of specificity that you go for. And
Okay.
it is specific in a different way. It's just we're being specific to source material and not necessarily to the realities of
The
that
situation.
the situation. And
Yeah,
it's a different kind of specificity. But that's where we have to start asking those questions. And
I
last week
agree with you.
we did StarCraft last week. Like there's a
Right.
Shakespearean aspect to StarCraft which justifies certain
Hmm.
decisions. Like Raynor is going to be allowed to do things that there's no way a military chain of command would support, and he's going to be able to do them unquestioningly. Like,
Right.
and here we're dealing with a similar situation, and that's where, on some level, I think we earned the right to let Price bully his superiors a little bit, because there is a little bit in Call of Duty of like, God damn it, sir! Like, there's a little bit of like you listen, like you said, the
Well,
Arnold.
again, it's the chain of command thing. Again, the great line from Saving Private Ryan: the gripes go up the command chain, not
Yeah.
down. Right.
There's that element of Shane Black. You know what I mean? There's that element of Riggs and Murtaugh telling their sergeant how it is.
Right.
There's that element of Arnold telling Carl Weathers what's acceptable and what's not, even though Carl Weathers is the superior officer. Like there's those things that inform, and you can't tell me that's not part of Call of Duty. It is, I will say, more a part of Black Ops than it is a part of
Call of Duty.
Call of
Modern
Modern
Warfare.
Warfare.
Yeah. Yeah.
But not. I mean, but Black Ops was following in the footsteps of, I mean, of Modern Warfare. So you've got only a little bit more pulp there, and like the the screaming in the chair and the whole numbers thing and the ridiculousness.
Yeah. I
It
mean,
was it was it was nice. I liked, although they kind of scaled it back a little bit with Black Ops 3. They kind of pulled back.
I pretty much stopped playing. I don't actually. Did I play Modern Warfare 3? I think I did. I think I did do Modern Warfare 3 for a
That
while.
was the one
But I
where
think that was
the
my last
The
game.
US got invaded in Modern Warfare 3. The US
I
got invaded by
vaguely
Russia.
remember playing this. Yeah. I think I do remember playing this.
Honey Badger, the whole time.
Something like that. Yeah. I mean I played Modern Warfare 2 a bunch. I mean Modern Warfare 2 was like the biggest game for me because when I was playing multiplayer I was like ranked top 1,000 in the world in that for a little while. But honestly, I don't remember the campaigns of 2 and 3 the way I do of the original. Just
Oh,
because the original was so
Modern
good.
Warfare 1 was fantastic, and Black Ops had a a mandate in front of them. Treyarch,
Yeah.
because they were Treyarch and Infinity Ward, I believe, were splitting the World War stories for a minute there. They were alternating, and then they were like, let's do our own thing.
So,
And
well, I mean, I remember it just in terms of like what happened back then, which was Modern Warfare was the first game to deviate off of World War II,
right.
but Treyarch was already in development of World at War, and
Yep.
so we went from Modern Warfare, Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare, to World at War, and World at War has only one thing going for it. Do you remember what it is?
I never played it.
Zombies.
Oh, that's right. Yes. Yes.
That was the only reason to get that game. That game
Yep.
was just not very good, other than the zombies. The zombies was awesome. And then Modern Warfare 2 came out, and then Treyarch was like, okay, Black Ops.
And they did.
But
But what I'm saying is
yeah.
the success of Modern Warfare was such a mandate for Treyarch, and
Yeah, oh yeah, because
and
once they went to Modern Warfare, and like no one cared about World at War because Modern Warfare was just elevated the bar
and and
so high.
and what I'm telling you is that
Yeah.
Black Ops really, it was a different tone, it was a different storytelling style,
Yeah.
but they did deliver the goods. And it's stupid in a way that Modern Warfare doesn't dare to be. It's much more reckless and ridiculous in its scope, and at the same
Okay.
time, um, you're doing yourself a disservice if you haven't played it. And
I mean, I did, but I honestly I was so put
you're
off by Treyarch that I didn't care if it wasn't an Infinity Ward game kind of thing. I did play Black Ops.
Black
I
Ops
did
was
play Black Ops. I did play Black Ops 2.
it was I
I
thought it was delightful. Black Ops was actually the first Call of Duty game that I played.
okay.
Um, um,
And the original Modern Warfare. Oh my
I
God.
was homeless when it came out, and I was sleeping on my friend's couch, and he had it, and so I played that. And then I found Mass Effect, and that was over.
I remember things from the original Modern Warfare, both single player and multiplayer, that just are like I remember like the perk packages that I had and the loadouts, and I had all the different things that we could do and that we did, and like throwing grenades over buildings off the break on that map in the Middle East that I can't remember. I can't remember the names of any of the maps except for Wetwork, which is like one of my favorite maps in the original because I knew the exact place in the multiplayer game. You would go up into the second floor of the windows, right? So that was on either end of the ship. And if you crouched in a very specific way, you only revealed like 1 pixel of yourself.
Oh
So
wow.
like if they were shooting at you, right, they had to hit that pixel. Because if they shot where your body would be, there was no bullet penetration
Mm.
through the steel of that ship.
Yeah.
And so I could just be like in that, but you had full visibility, despite the fact that only like 1 pixel of your head was visible,
Oh
kind of
wow.
thing. And then I learned how to look for it on the opposing side. So if I was getting I knew how to counter snipe it too, kind of
Yep.
thing.
Yep.
And it was just ridiculous. There were so many ridiculous things you could do in the original Modern Warfare, but I was, I to me, I know it made players angry that those things were happening. And then, once Modern Warfare 2 came out, you couldn't play the original anymore because they stopped, doing security patching and updates, and hackers were a thing.
Yeah.
But like, you know, I people who were complaining about that kind of game functionality, I was like, dude, no one's complaining about wave dashing and Super Smash Brothers.
Right.
And like these they're not are they glitches? Are they intended gameplay? You can't really tell with stuff like that.
They're not
And always like
intended. They're not that's they when people
right. So then but again, how could you ever have a Super Smash Brothers Melee tournament and be like, you can't wave dash, kind of thing to the players? The players would be like, all right, no one's gonna play this.
well it happened. I mean, going back to StarCraft, like part
Yeah.
of the reason why the game was so well balanced was because the Mutalisk stacked.
Yeah.
And and
Yeah.
and and that's what made the Zerg viable.
Yeah,
Now,
you could bomb cloud Mutalisks if you knew how to do it, kind of thing. You have the
eh,
one that's just all
yep.
the others are following the one, and so you could literally the maximum number of units you could control in that game was 12,
So
no matter what.
there comes a point where the
Yeah.
developer so one of the terms that I've gotten to know very well as a fan of Star Citizen is emergent gameplay.
Okay.
Emergent gameplay is a thing in game development,
What is the
and
definition of emergent gameplay?
stuff that players do. Stuff that players do.
Can you clarify that?
Wave riding is emergent gameplay.
So unintended like exploits essentially that players discover, kind of thing.
Let's not say exploits because an exploit does need to get fixed at certain points. Um,
Okay.
at some point, a game developer says, "Well, this is actually part of the game. I didn't design it to be part of the game." It's like making a discovery as an actor. You see players do things, and you're like,
Okay.
"Yes." Uh,
Okay.
a,
Okay.
a classic, and Mutalisk stacking is one of those things. They didn't fix that
Right.
when they remastered StarCraft. They because they know it's part of the game balance and it's part of how the esport evolved, and they're not going to mess with StarCraft. They're not going to mess with it.
Right.
So Blizzard acknowledges that stacking Mutalisks is part of how you play the Zerg. It just wasn't supposed to be how you play the Zerg.
Just like how wave dashing is part of Super Smash
That's
Brothers.
right. My favorite Star Citizen example of this is Jumptown. Um, so Star Citizen is full of emergent gameplay. The whole game is built to cultivate emergent gameplay. But one
Right.
of the first examples of this was the Jumptown Wars, which so there's this was back when Star Citizen was one planet and three moons. Three
What
moons.
was the planet? Which
It
planet
was
was it?
Crusader, which was not a
Okay.
planet yet, but you could go to
Not a
port.
planet I've ever been to in the game, so I
But
don't know
what I'm
anything
saying, it
about it.
was Crusader was an orb with a skin on it, and
Oh, okay.
it wasn't a gas giant, and you could fly into it. But they had Port
Okay.
Olisar, and they had the pirate base Grimhex orbiting the moon of Yela in the asteroid field, and then they had various stations where you could get gas and things, and they had the moons of Crusader, were the first sort of play space in Star Citizen. And
Hmm.
one of the things that they wanted was a place to buy and sell drugs. Um,
Okay.
what they didn't realize was that there was a bug in the Jumptown. Jumptown was where you bought drugs, and it
Right.
wasn't on any map. You had to find it on Yella geographically, which you learn how to do.
Jumptown, the place Jumptown.
It's like a shack. It's a crack house. They're manufacturing drugs
Okay.
there, and um, the the price of the drugs was unintentionally low at Jumptown. So you
Okay.
could make millions on a cargo haul.
Okay.
So as a result, people camped Jumptown as orgs and would fight other people off and control the flow of drugs in Star
All
Citizen
right.
and just
Okay.
make millions. And people would try and fight them off. And so the Jumptown Wars were um, the first real example of what Star Citizen could be and might be in time. Because people were gearing up and working together and building plans to crack this space. And it went on for about 3 weeks until eventually they patched out the glitch and it was no longer worth it to camp Jumptown.
Right.
So, but one of the things that Star Citizen had always been sort of intending to cultivate was um, events that drew in massive numbers of players. They want wars. They want things that happen in the Star Citizen universe to blow up and create stuff. And so Jumptown became the template for what we now call dynamic events.
Okay.
And dynamic events are cultivated event spaces where players can do what players do and where there are benefits to convening around a certain area. So the first dynamic event was called the Xenothreat Incursions, which are Xenothreat
I
is a
remember. I vaguely remember that. I remember getting like alerts for that when I started playing. Yeah.
so Xenothreat is, and this started a couple years ago, but Xenothreat is a gang in the neighboring system of Pyro that's been coming through the jump point and doing raids, and
Right.
it's their effort specifically to destroy the military presence in the Stanton system. So there's a javelin, there's a cruiser, a capital ship, a military capital ship in Stanton has kind of the primary military presence called the Warhammer, and
Okay.
the Warhammer was damaged, and there were supplies being shuttled in that were destroyed by Xenothreat. So players were asked to go find the supplies, board the ships, kill the terrorists that were loading the supplies onto their own ships, load
Right.
them onto. So you're fighting off Xenothreat fighters. You're fighting off Xenothreat capital ships that are attacking the base. You're fighting off screens, and then people are actually going in there and moving cargo in the middle of all this insanity and trying to load different kinds of cargo, which some of them can't be quantumed, some of them need to be delivered within a certain amount of time, and some of them can't be hit. So you've
Okay.
got all these different boxes, and are you going to move all one type, or how are you going to strategize that? You move all the boxes into the ships, you get them back to the base, you get the Warhammer up and running, and that's the end of the first phase. Either the Warhammer gets 2 damage to fight, or you succeed, and then Xenothreat launches the thrust of their attack, and you have a truckload of enemies and bad guys to wade through, and you either have the help of the Warhammer or you don't. And players are also welcome to support the gangs if that's their want. There wasn't necessarily any remuneration for that in the beginning. We're getting to the point now where you can sign up through gang contacts. If you have certain levels of reputation with those gangs, they'll contact you and be like, hey, it's going down. We need all your help. And since
Right.
then, they've done Jumptown 2.0 and 2.1, which is now automated. There's a couple of production facilities. So there's a little variety. Automated drug production facilities are going into production. So Stanton's the advocacy is the law enforcement branch of the United Earth Empire. The advocacy will contact lawful citizens and be like, "We're mobilizing the CDF. If you can help, the Civilian Defense Force, we'd like people to go and secure this drug labs and make sure that all the material is transported to a safe location." And then, of course, the gangsters are like, "It's go time! Like, let's." So the Jumptown Wars go crazy, and you have other events now too. There's a ground assault on certain platforms at Crusader. So the gang that mostly runs Grimhex, which is the pirate base, takes over a number of platforms on Crusader to subvert Crusader control and steal something, as it turns out,
Got it.
which we don't know what it is. And you have to go
I
in
haven't.
there.
I haven't played since you and I played last. I mean, I got to log back on
There's
at
a
some
lot
point.
of epic stuff, but the point is, like, so if you get called, like, and like the CDF advocacy people will call you and be like, "Hey, we really actually need your help right now. Like, can you come and help us clear this out?" Stanton's a mess, which is part of the reason why they wanted to do Stanton first, because it offers so many gameplay opportunities. and it
Sure.
allows them to sort of prototype a lot of different stuff, including gas giants, including all kinds of things. Um, but all of these events were built off of the emergent play that was observed at Juntown and everything that they could learn about it at that time. And now it's about finding structured ways to make it better as opposed to taking away from it. So it's the cool thing about Star Citizen is it is a collaboration. Players find cool things to do. Players were um, not waiting for racing. Racing has been a thing in Star Citizen for years, even though formal racing gameplay has only been around for about a year. And there's ground races and there's ship races and there's whole
Right.
organizations that find racetracks and develop racetracks. And then eventually, finally, a dev just had enough time to be like, and they actually infiltrated the racing community undercover, got to know
Right.
people because they didn't want people talking to them like a dev. They wanted to find out what was going on. They found
Right.
out what everybody's actually favorite tracks were, and then they brought in construction stuff and they built this little racing league that manages underground races in Stanton. And now it's a little easier to find your way around the track because there's markers and things, but there's also like cool architecture and like built up abandoned like, you know, industrial shit just kind of all over the place to give it a lot more character. But they used they developed and beautified the racetracks that players were already using and developed new racetracks based on what they were seeing players doing. So
Right.
so the
So
neat
how does this all translate to Call of Duty?
if players are doing things, this all came
Right.
out from if players are doing things that what is a glitch versus what is gameplay.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
because of yeah, no, what I'm saying is like nobody wanted there to be a pixel sized hole. Like
Right.
they put a ship there because they wanted a wall of steel. They wanted the ship to do the ship thing, and they wanted the
Well, so
player.
it was looking out of a window,
Right.
right? And this is the whole thing. It wasn't like there was a hole. It was a window, and if you were standing to shoot, and do the sniper rifle, you were very visible. If you crouched and you wedged yourself into the corner and leaned,
Right.
right? Because the altitude of the geometry like changes when you lean versus
Yeah.
when you're just normally crouched or whatever it is,
Yeah.
right? You were able to kind of like lean out like this and you could get if you were in scope, right? You had to be looking through the scope
Yep.
because of how like the optics in the scope worked. Once you got past the edge of the window with the scope, you could see the whole battlefield. But what the other players would see now, if you were looking straight, like if you were underneath the window
Yeah.
and you were looking straight up, you would see the failed clipping of like the gun barrel sticking through the metal kind
Yes.
of thing.
Yep.
But you couldn't shoot it, right? Because the gun wasn't part of the
The
character's
hitbox.
hitbox.
Yep.
Right. The hitbox was still concealed fully behind the wall. So it was a way to get vision. And because the gun barrel clipped through the wall, you didn't hit it yourself. You shot through the wall, basically, kind of thing.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
but it's like, I never saw patching for, like the original Modern Warfare, Modern Warfare 2. I
I
never
can
saw
only
patching.
imagine that the solution
Yeah.
to that would have just been to put the bullet further back in the barrel.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
just let the bullet be in the gun. Like and have a barrel. That's it.
Right, because like the question is like where and I don't know this, but where does the bullet actually generate when you pull the trigger? And I'd say probably it generates at the muzzle.
Yeah.
I would guess.
That's right.
And if you actually had it generate in the chamber, then yeah, like it probably would hit the wall. You're right.
That is a broken game mechanic, and I don't think that the developers wanted that for the map at all. So to me, like, or if it's just that one spot, maybe you just put a couple barrels in front of the window. If there's like,
But the thing is that in the original Modern Warfare, there were always spots to find, right?
Yeah.
And I was like a sniper rifle guy. Like, yeah, I could do like the SMG thing, but like really, I was happiest with the Barrett 50 cal, and so I was always looking for, the sniper perches and the best places to be hidden and stuff like that. Except I will admit, I was the terrible human being who in Modern Warfare 2 had the exact loadout kit needed Do you remember the skyscraper map on Modern Warfare 2?
I never played Call of Duty. The only Call of
Oh,
Duty
okay.
I never played the multiplayer except for Infinite Warfare.
Okay.
Which
Well, there was this map in Call of Duty 2. And this I won't even call this emergent gameplay because it's very clear that this was developed intentionally. The map was skyscraper, and what it was is it was actually two skyscrapers and a bridge, like a sky bridge between the two of them. And the accessible areas, this is like at the top of the skyscrapers. The accessible areas of gameplay are like inside each building at that level, and then on top of the sky bridge between the two buildings. And that's it. But if you were creative enough and exploratory enough, like, and you could do this in, like, you know, if you just wanted to load the map and like mess around on the map, you know, in just like a practice mode, not even playing against other people. There were like the not the scaffolding, but like what do window washers use? Like the big, it's not scaffolding. What's it called? The carts. They go up and down on the cables, right?
Hanging carts, yeah.
Right, exactly. The hanging carts. They had built into the map, so there was like a lower side and a higher side, but not by much, right? It was like there was a set of steel stairs and over on the roof of the sky bridge that basically like you would just run up it and then you're on the high side kind of thing. This is not like crazy height altitude differential. But if you started on the low side, it was on the left of the map, and basically there was a way to kind of edge walk along the side so that you could be hidden and kind of get over to the enemy's side on like less likely to be detected. And then there was one of those cable car, whatever things, but the cables had been snapped on one end of it, so it was hanging like this. Someone discovered at some point that if you had you could do it without the sprinting perk, but there was a perk that let you sprint faster. It was way easier with the sprinting perk. If you were at maximum speed and you jumped off the building as you were running at this cart, because like if you were to miss it, you would just fall to your death, kind of thing. It functioned like a ladder, and you could climb it and get on to the what would that be called? Not edging, but like the concrete retainment between visually the playable floor and the next floor up on the skyscraper. And you could walk all the way around that to another cart that was angled and got you on the roof. And so then you could be on the enemy's roof with a grenade launcher.
Yeah.
And just be like, pump, pump. And there was the perk One Man Army, which is, with One Man Army, it allows you to change classes, because you could have like up to 5 classes kind of thing. But so what you could do is you could have a mirror class with all of the same weapons, but just you change 1 or 2 slight things for the functionality. But as long as the class you're changing to also has One Man Army and a grenade launcher, anytime you switched a class, you refreshed your ammo.
Oh, I see.
And so what you would do, so there was a perk called Danger Close, which is your explosions are bigger and do more damage. There was the perk One Man Army, so it was like there was the blue perk, the red perk, and the yellow perk. And so the blue perk was like your functionality perk. Your red perk was essentially your lethality perk, and your yellow perk was like your tactical perk kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so the red one was the sprinting perk was the red one. But so you would pick like One Man Army, sprinting perk, and I don't remember what the yellow one would be. And so you would get onto the roof, and then you would class change to One Man Army, Danger Close, and your utility slot, which is normally your grenade slot, would now be tactical insertion, which is when it's a flare, so it's very visible. But when you drop your tactical insertion, And then when you die, you respawn at the tactical insertion. Regardless of the map, regardless of the game situation, you respawn at the tactical insertion. The thing is, it's like a very bright and visible flare. So if enemies see it, they can shoot it, or they can camp it, and when you respawn, they just go poop, and you're dead, kind of thing. Again.
But if you put
But
on the
when
ledge
you're
or
on,
something, yeah.
but if you're no, once you were on the roof, it was huge. There was no danger of falling, and it was deep too. And there were no windows. There were no like skylights looking up or anything. I mean, there were, but you could also look down and just be like, boom, with a grenade. The only way they could get you off that roof was if they themselves ran up there. But the thing is like they need to do the run, and I can look down and see them doing the run to get onto that first little like cart that acts as the ladder, and just be like, boom, like that, and then just quick one-man army. I need more grenades. One-man army, back and forth, back and forth. And that's one of those things where it's like, dude, it's so clear like that this isn't a glitch. This is intended gameplay. Otherwise, like, why are they including, like, why do you make this piece of like fallen cart have ladder functionality?
Yeah.
Right? It's not like it was just coded in that all cable cars have. No, it's not like that. It is very specifically was given ladder functionality.
Yep.
And oh my god, I mean, what in Modern Warfare 2 you had to have a 25 kill streak to get a nuke? I had more nukes on Skyscraper than any map ever, kind of thing. It was so easy to just get like 30, 40 kill streaks. But the problem is, and despite it, it's a lot of fun if you're the player doing it. But it's really not a lot of fun for the rest of the players playing the game.
Right.
It really kind of ruins the experience because I would play the game mode Sabotage, which is the spawn points don't change over the course of the game because it's you each have your side and you have to get a neutral bomb and plant it and blow up your opponent's objective. So the objectives don't change. It's an anchored fixed spot. So the spawn points never change. You always spawn on your side of the map. Whereas in like just a standard team deathmatch, you just spawn in proximity to your team, wherever that is, kind of thing.
You know, this brings up another issue which is pertinent to game development, movie development. It's not something that I expected to come up, but it's something I put a lot of thought into.
I love to hear it.
There's been a lot of conversation lately, obviously, in the games industry about toxicity and the relationship between developers and the culture that they create. And there's a lot of
culture, including the audience.
Yep.
Or okay.
And it has always been my observation that show people or entertainers in any capacity lead their communities, and they create the communities that they want to create. And lots of people have pushed back at that idea because they don't want to be accountable for the communities that they have created.
Oh, you mean like people pushing back are the game devs themselves and the filmmakers?
Let's say management.
Okay.
Let's say game development management. And I don't want to necessarily. I mean, it's no secret that Blizzard has
not executives like
corporate management, but also certain cadres of game development. And there's a lot of toxicity in, for example, the Blizzard gaming community, and that's not controversial to say.
League of Legends.
But you look at the response that Blizzard has had to that, and they're like, well, we only have so much control, this and that. But then you turn around and you look at the allegations of constant sexual abuse, the allegations of constant worker abuse that have been
within the company.
And it very clearly is the truth that that the community is a reflection of the company, and that their leadership style has promoted a community that reflects their values. And Call of Duty is also. And it's interesting because you're talking about how game developers have put this obviously toxic game mechanic into a map. Like you said, it's not fun for the other players.
Well, the thing is, like, it's not as toxic in other game modes, right? It's only toxic in the game mode that absolutely limits the geographical area of the spawning. Because because here's the thing about that. If you're on the other side of the map, so like I said, remember you have to start on the low side.
Yeah.
Now you could still get up there from the high side, right? But if you're on the roof, the entire row of windows in the other building has direct line of sight.
Yeah.
So if your guys are spawning over there, you're cool. But if they're spawning over there, they can shoot at you very easily. The whole thing is that if, in Sabotage, if they're getting over there, they have to first fight their way over there and then be able to actually shoot me. And I still have, I have a sniper rifle, I have a grenade launcher, I have everything I need to be able to defend myself, kind of thing. The craziest ones for me were always like when they would actually get up onto the roof, and I know then they kill me, right? And I know because when your tactical insertion gets destroyed, there is a voice notification that says tactical insertion destroyed.
Yep.
And when you die, that persists. Whereas if like I'm trying to think, like there is a way for this to be a little bit different. But so if they would kill me and I didn't hear tactical insertion destroyed, I knew they were camping me. So I would be holding down the forward movement stick, right, with the sprint button pushed, so that the moment I was already moving at maximum speed when I respawned, the number of times I actually escaped that and then survived and put down another tactical insertion and just again like, oh my god, it's outrageous the things that I came up with to be able to defend my spot up. But really, that doesn't function in the most popular game modes. It only functions in Sabotage. It doesn't function in Team Deathmatch. I mean, it does.
It was a bug. It was an unintended consequence of that particular game mode and how it combined
of the game mode
and how that combined with that particular feature. Which that's a bug. That's a bug. But even so, like it's interesting because you can see. And
I'm sorry, I don't mean to. It's actually the same with wet work, the thing I was describing with the sniper rifle, because again, Sabotage, one team spawns on one side of the ship, one team spawns on the other side of the ship. In Team Deathmatch, it's still a broken spot, but someone's just gonna sneak up behind you and murk you.
There's less directionality to the map in Team.
Right, even if you're gonna run out of your claymores, and people are someone is gonna sneak up behind you and just murk you because someone's gonna spawn right behind you eventually, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But in Sabotage again, where the spawn and that was it, one might argue that it was the game mode that was broken, not any of the map functionality, because the game mode forced specific spawning locations, kind of thing.
Yeah, but you can see. I mean, you can see. You can see the personalities and the ethics of the designers in those kinds of
right.
I am all for traversal puzzles and different kind of ways to. It's always fun to have the power to make the map your own.
So I mean, let me ask then, like, and I actually would like to briefly ask your opinion on League of Legends and Riot a little bit. But with a game like Super Smash Brothers, wave dashing, right? I'm going to be straight with you. I was friends with a guy who was friends with a world-class Super Smash Brothers player. Mm-hmm. Like, someone who would, like, have tens of thousands of, viewers on his streams because he was that good at it, kind of thing. And, was on a team for it and things. If you are going to, if you would like to, I'm not even going to say endeavor, but if you have any enjoyment of playing Super Smash Brothers beyond just like the interpersonal social level, you want to do it maybe a little bit competitively, you have to learn how to wave dash. It's not optional.
Yeah.
Right? You cannot win without knowing that mechanic with muscle memory. Yep. Right? Like, it's not a thing you have to think. It'd be like, button combinations in Tekken and stuff like that. You can't think about, like, wait a minute, no, it's up, and A, and like, no. You have to just know exactly what you're doing.
There's mechanics like that in StarCraft and Heroes of the Storm.
Oh, absolutely. Marine splitting versus Banelinks.
Yep.
Right?
You have to be able, what's it called when you squeeze the same number of shots into moving that you would be able to squeeze in if like fire
Right.
something or something like that. Yeah.
Well, no, it's a very reflex mechanic thing of just attack moving,
Yes,
where
that's
it's
right.
like, because the way it works is that Marines don't shoot a constant endless stream of bullets. They go brrr, brrr,
Yep.
brrr when they
Yep.
shoot. And so the professional level players would stop their Marine, because Marines can't move and shoot at the same time. That was actually why in StarCraft 2 the what was it called? It was a cat thing. Was it the Panther or something like that? It was a vehicle. It was a Terran vehicle that exists in the game, in the campaign. But it was removed for multiplayer because it was too broken and there were no balancing fixes for it,
The
because
Vulture?
it could. No, it wasn't the Vulture. It was a new unit in StarCraft 2. I think it was called like the
Oh,
Panther, the
okay.
Panther or
Okay.
something like that.
Okay.
It was essentially like it had like Volter speed and agility with Goliath artillery, but could shoot while it was moving, and it was ground to ground only. So like, like the Guardian, the Zerg unit Guardian
I
can
remember
shoot
those.
while it
Yep.
moves,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And a Mutalisk can shoot while it moves, kind of thing. But Terran units were never. Valkyrie was the Terran unit that could do it. A Valkyrie, but that was air to air only, right? This was a ground unit that could shoot and move on the ground, kind of thing. And it was so broken. But no, so the Marine thing is, because they go like, the players learn
time in between to move.
Yes, the reload time, essentially.
Yep.
So they move during the reload time, and they got it. You just get so good with the timing of it that you're moving, and every single time you're supposed to shoot, you stop, and it's just S and then attack move, and then S and then attack. You would use attack move because the moment they were ready to shoot again, they would just automatically shoot, kind of thing.
Yep.
But if you started them moving again with attack move, they wouldn't, because they were in range. So they would stop because of how the attack command functionality worked, kind of thing. But yeah, like just like that, and Marine splitting against Banelings too, kind of thing. Which honestly, I was Diamond League in StarCraft 2 for a period of time, but I couldn't, as Terran, but I couldn't progress any further because honestly, those kind of trigger mechanics, that's beyond me. I can't. And it's the same with like wave dashing. But I would, the thing about it in StarCraft, I don't feel like any of that is glitching. That is all clearly just masterful use of game mechanics.
Yes.
Whereas wave dashing is a glitch, straight out. The game was not coded for wave dashing to exist. Are you familiar with what wave dashing actually is in the game?
No.
Kind of thing?
No.
You've played Super Smash, right?
I've seen a couple of matches of Super Smash.
When a character runs forward, okay? It's the same kind of thing. You can't move and shoot at the same time in Super Smash, right? The character has to be standing still in order for it to execute an attack, kind of thing. But when you want to rush and close distance, either forward or backward, kind of thing, there is a delay or whatever, an animation delay or an intended delay where they have to come out of the dash and set in order to attack.
Yep.
But someone figured out that if you do the dash command, essentially, which is I think it was like just double forward on a joystick or double back on a joystick in order to get the dash. But as you're doing it, you were to do like, it's either crouch or shield. I can't remember. It's some other combination. You do a combination command with it that the character executes the sprint motion with the stopped and set animation, kind of thing, which means that the moment they complete, so not only is it the moment they stop, they can instantaneously attack. They can actually attack through the dash because they're in that set position, kind of thing.
Oh, I see. I see.
So literally, and every single professional grade player can do this cold with their eyes closed, kind of thing. But if you can't do it cold with your eyes closed, it's not that like, you can have a good game, but you're going to lose, like in chess, where like, okay,
No.
if you put me up against Magnus Carlsen, I am going to lose 999,999,999 times out of a billion. But there will probably be a handful of actually fun, interesting, competitive games in there.
That's not
right.
This. Yeah, I hear.
But that's not this. You have no shot. You can't. You won't even.
The game. You're not playing the game if you can't.
You won't even deal them a point of damage because it was also an evasive thing.
Yeah.
Right? Where it was like, because if you were dashing, there were like, again, involving like certain frames that you can be hit, your hitbox is vulnerable in, and certain ones that you're not. But like if you're wave dashing, you are also like slightly less vulnerable, kind of thing, to attacks, because you have you have like the frame hitbox functionality of dashing with all of the power of being set and attacking, kind of thing. It's broken.
Yep.
But the whole thing is that Smash Brothers Melee, in any case, was never the GameCube was not set up for multiplayer functionality. It was not connected to the internet. There was no patching the game.
Yeah.
The game was the game after it released. Done. The end.
Yep.
And so it destroyed the competitive experience for players who would otherwise probably be very interested in it. I mean, like, I was a Marth player. Marth was kind of a tier 2 professionally viable character. Like the crazy ones were all, again, the characters with the highest speed and agility, which was Fox, Falco. I think I don't remember if Link was professionally viable, but there were some of them. And Marth was like a tier 2 fine character, kind of thing. But I was really good with Marth mechanics. But I wasn't good with these broken universal glitch mechanics.
Yep.
That all characters could do, kind of thing, and you had to be able to do them. And it's just like, I kind of just stopped playing Smash because I'm just like, this is just stupid. Like, this isn't even enjoyable. I don't want to devote my life to learning how to wave dash.
Yeah.
And like the whole thing is, like you said, with like StarCraft, to me, that's a very different thing from Mutalisk stacking in StarCraft.
It is.
Right?
Well, yes and no. I mean,
anyone can Mutalisk stack. You don't have to, all you have to do is just have one Mutalisk on patrol, and then you can just churn out 50 Mutalisks and all have them just click move following that one, and you send
the timing of the fire step moves. That is something that takes good practice. And what I will say is this.
With Marines and stuff like that.
And I think that, Marine stepping, that's what they call it.
But it makes sense though, right? It doesn't require you combining two separate mechanics in an unintended way to break the physics of the game. You never break the physics of the game in StarCraft.
Yes and no. Here's what I see happening. I see that I do not work at Riot. Right.
Well, for League of Legends?
No, for who did Super Smash?
Oh, that's Nintendo.
Yeah, okay.
That's Nintendo. Nintendo doesn't have devs. They just Nintendo.
So what I see happening behind the development of that particular game, based on what you said, is like you said, it was at the time the game was what it was, so that was part of it. Everybody had gotten so used to controllers that it just never occurred to the devs that a player would be able to execute two special moves at the same time.
Well, they were basic moves. That was the whole thing. They turned the combination of two basic moves into this absolutely broken god technique.
But they are special basic moves. Like, you have to tap twice. Like, there's no reason why you can't do it with two hands. But up until then, game controllers had been so rudimentary that I bet it just never occurred to anyone at the company that somebody would try to do two moves at the same time. Because
it's not like it was the Gen 1 joystick controller. Right, no. N64 was before it. This was GameCube, so and that's the whole thing. Is like, and at this point, PlayStation was out. PlayStation controller was the first controller to utilize joysticks.
Yes. But I think that people didn't have the experience with let's say competitive play. I think that people like. I think that it was.
You're right. I mean, there was no esports. There was right. No it was still just BattleNet with StarCraft at that point, kind of thing.
Nobody was thinking in terms of players are going to be able to like. the ability of players to break things because of the rigorousness of the play
Right.
had never been sort of understood at that
Okay.
point. And as a result, like I think the devs were completely unprepared for that. Now, you know, is it something that you can do people still play Smash, the new Smash competitively?
That I
Like
don't know. I do not know.
there is a competitive Smash scene for sure.
There must be. That is like
And
there must be.
and I've never seen this mechanic, so I think what they probably have done
Yeah.
is said, okay, players want more the ability to engage and disengage more effectively. That's what they want, obviously.
Right.
Like so and Nintendo is pretty good at developing gameplay. So I imagine and Smash is popular right now.
Yeah.
So I imagine that what's happened is that they have found better ways of engage and disengage gameplay. And that's it. But to me, it is not a glitch. It is I think emergent gameplay because up until that point people hadn't been playing games that intensely to the point where anybody would be like
Not console games. For sure not console
absolutely
games.
not. No, StarCraft was the only game that was put to that kind of test.
And that was a computer game.
And that was
Yeah.
and people did not
Yeah.
understand, like people saw console gaming differently.
Yeah. Well, also console computers. Right. The internet was invented, and computers were how you accessed it.
Yep.
I'm sure that for decades, even with the internet, I'm sure back in the '90s when America Online was coming into its heyday, people still would have looked at consoles and been like, yeah, consoles are never going to connect to the internet. They're just consoles, kind of thing. Like it's never going to be an internet experience with the console gaming.
Right.
Obviously, that would have been a very short-sighted thing to say, but
And the other thing that's true is that Blizzard had no idea how effectively StarCraft was going to hold up. Like they didn't know.
It's
like
the greatest RTS of all time.
They didn't mean to do it. They built gameplay that they believed in, but the fact that the game held up strongly enough to be a competitive sport, and then they did Brood War in order to make the changes that they wanted to make to support the gameplay that they were seeing. Like that was the whole idea behind Brood War, was like we need to get in there and find a way to fix this a little bit.
Yep.
But it was the best online game of its time. And they intended to make the best online game of their time. That was the intention, but they did not expect millions of players on BattleNet. Like that was not something that they ever thought was going to happen.
Servers weren't ready for it either, kind of thing.
But also the game mechanics, like they in their head they go, oh god, like they're going to break the hell out of this thing, and it actually didn't go down that way. Like
because it was a very well made game.
But the level of quality was that was luck. They didn't know to prepare.
Yes,
for that.
it was luck. It was luck.
Like it was
so,
craft that they made a game that well, but they didn't know they needed to. They did not know they needed to.
So I do kind of have the heart out in about 20 minutes.
Yes.
I would like to. Well, I do want to finish talking about Call of Duty. I would like to briefly, because we are talking about kind of that culture, right? And like this. Where does League of Legends and Riot fall in all of this? Because I haven't played League in a number of years. When I was playing it, there was no argument to be made that it was like the most toxic game on the planet, kind of thing. Like you couldn't, if anyone else tried to argue a different game, it would just be so obvious that the other person had absolutely no idea what they were talking about, kind of thing. Riot tried to combat this through a system called the Tribunal, which was interesting to me. Basically, it's like, you can always report players for toxic gameplay, kind of thing. And to be clear, I don't mean toxic gameplay with the mechanics.
No, you're talking
right? It was like we're talking about the actual interactions between the players, kind of thing. And I mean, of course, it's gonna be toxic. It's 5-on-5 team game, and it's like you can't play the game without 5 players on your team. It's a game that doesn't function in a 1v1 capacity. So the toxicity is really more frequently between teammates than it is from opposing players.
Yes, I saw the
And
same
so,
thing in Heroes of the Storm. Same story.
well, yeah, is Heroes of the Storm is it's League of Legends, just
Yep.
StarCraft. And the thing is that so that you could always report players, and then the reports were not actually reviewed by Riot. The reports were reviewed by the community via the tribunal. And it was a volunteer thing, but they did offer some incentive, like if you got, if you did X number of tribunal points in a season, you got like a special skin at the end of the season. Like there was some compensation for it.
Let me suggest, first of all,
Yeah.
that system that you just described is an attempt to avoid accountability.
Yes, I agree. I don't necessarily think it is a willful attempt to avoid accountability. I think that they foresaw a problem and were like, this is going to be way bigger than we can ever handle it. How can we make this function? But at the end of the day, you're right. At the end of the day, it is avoiding accountability. Right?
It buys them the ability to say, this is what the players wanted, this is what the players created. I don't know what else to tell you. And at the end of the day,
with the results of the reports, yes, but they still created that system.
They created a system that absolved them.
Yeah.
And that automatically, they didn't want to say no racism, no sexism. They just didn't want to.
They didn't want to say what?
No racism, no sexism.
Oh, but I mean, it's not even what I'm talking. I mean, yes, clearly that's a thing, but I'm not even talking about it. It's just, race or sex might not have anything to do with it. It could just be two bros yelling at each other. It's like, bro, why didn't you go left?
Yeah, but inevitably, like, the people who do that are going to say, why didn't you go left, you N-word? Like, that's always, like, inevitably, like, you are.
Some people, I mean, yes, some people will, but I'm telling you, that's not exclusive.
What I'm saying, Greg, is if you edit those people out, or even make them unwelcome,
right,
from the get-go,
right,
then automatically the people who are most actively going to be working to undermine the safety of other players are gone, and that is a great first step in terms of building.
Well, look, the tribunal was always able to hand down bans, kind of thing.
But just the simple fact that Riot doesn't want to be the one to say we don't allow this, we don't allow that. They don't want to be the one to put that on the community.
I mean, no, they do have a code of conduct, and
yes, but if you're not willing to enforce your code of conduct, it doesn't mean anything. And my point is this: if they are actively avoiding having to they're trying to avoid getting on Reddit. They're trying to avoid getting on the subreddits as an enemy of quote unquote free speech. That's what they're trying to do. And they built a system to facilitate that because they don't want to get players doxxed. They don't want these kinds of headaches. They're afraid of the Nazis and they're willing to play ball. And so they created a free speech system that allows the community, whoever wants to put in the time to manage the community, to develop whatever system of values that they think is appropriate and enforce whatever rules they think should be enforced. And at the end of the day, number one, that's chicken shit. Number two, it's these people, yes, are dangerous, but they are not as powerful as they think they are. And
do you think there is a way, given the scope and the scale of the game and the scope of the problem, is it really manageable by a company, or do you need the world community to be able to contribute to the policing of it?
Every single game company has a day one. And if you build your craft and you build your community together, then you are constantly supported by the community you've already built. And if you are building a company culture that advocates for abuse or that advocates for sexist or racist policies, then
I think look, it was always very clear, right? Like, if the N-word is being thrown around, if sexism is being thrown around, if there are very clear and obvious and blatant buzzwords being said in the chat, I mean, those punishments were never escaped. But there is always, how do you police it if someone is being is harassing without using vulgar language, right? Like without.
The first time you see the problem,
Mm-hmm.
you sit down and you say, wow, okay, this is a player base. We've seen this problem once. It is now an exploit. We're going to see it a million times more tomorrow. So we're going to deal with it right now, and we're going to say, here are the conditions under which, and maybe sometimes you get it wrong. Maybe sometimes you do something that the players don't like, and actually it's not fair. And then you can say, okay, I see that this is having unintended consequences and it's limiting people in ways that I don't think is good. We can change it. And if you maintain that, but you stay in the driver's seat of that process, and
Okay.
you are the one who manages those decisions. And the truth is, what you're showing the community is that I am looking out for the safety of other people.
Yeah.
And I'm going to throw a ban the second I see that safety. I absolutely.
You just nailed it on the head. It's a matter of cost benefit analysis for the company. The company declared that the cost of doing it was not worth the company's benefit,
That's right.
and they didn't care about the impact it would have on the player base
Or the quality of the gameplay when you get
or the
things out.
quality of the game or the quality, because again, they knew that, like, okay, yeah, we might lose some players who really like get put off by it, but we're gonna still retain the vast majority of our player base,
We're
and
going to
we'll
create
still
a
make
home.
money.
It's exactly right. That's exactly
Yeah.
right. And the truth is, like, going back to Star Citizen, there's reasons why I love this game so much. There's reasons why I love the company so much. And part of it is because they have been conscious at all times in the development of their community. This game is Nazi bait. It's Nazi bait. It is
It is. It's
about,
Nazi bait.
like, it's full of tonal craziness. Like, there's pipes and dark, grim dark crap everywhere. It is literally about a Nazi space empire. And look,
Oh, what, Star Citizen?
yeah. And
Oh, okay.
Squadron 42. And
I thought
if
we were
you
still
see,
talking about League.
people will throw an N-word in the
Mhm.
chat, and you will see, or something, and you're not gonna, you'll get one or two Snickers, and then you will get a dog pile.
Can I ask a quick question here?
Yeah.
Because this is a little political,
Yeah.
a little bit.
Yeah.
But I'm curious.
Yeah.
The idea of, it's in our Constitution, right? The U.S. Constitution, no, like, public execution kind of thing,
Okay.
right? And that has been, like, everyone leans into that. Like, punishment is not a public affair kind of thing. And look, I'm not going to sit here and badmouth the Founding Fathers, because clearly when that was written into the Constitution, it was important to write it in, because what were what were monarchies and stuff doing over in Europe, right? Like, they were doing public beheadings, and, like, again, like Braveheart, like at the end of Braveheart, that was very public. That was common. Kind of thing. That was the way. And so they did need to put in the whole, like, absolutely no public humiliation, no public execution and stuff like that. But again, no one is ever going to convince me that the Founding Fathers foresaw the internet. No one is going to convince me of that.
No,
and so I start. Well, let me just finish the thought. Right, I start to wonder: do we need some of that again? Not in a real world, like, geopolitical sense, but in matters pertaining to, do we need to start eviscerating people publicly on the internet?
Nope.
Kind of thing.
I don't think so. I think well, look, there's a difference between critiquing and I like for example, what Kamala Harris is about to do to Donald Trump is not, I mean, we're going to see a lot of, like, I'd like to report.
I'm not speculating on that yet. I will speculate on it when I have the data to speculate on it.
I'm a California resident. I've followed this person's career.
I like her better than Biden.
And the first rewatch the first debate that she and the other lead, like, there was a Trump versus, like, there was a debate.
Wait, you mean the VP debate, the Pence and Kamala Harris debate back from 2020?
No, before that, Donald Trump showed up in a debate between her and, I think, Senator Warren and Senator Sanders and Pete Buttigieg, I think.
What like
And,
a Democratic primary debate or
yeah,
something?
there was something along those lines because there wasn't, and I forget exactly what it was, but it was.
Sure, it was Trump and not like Bloomberg or somebody like the billionaire Bloomberg who just like inserted himself into the race kind of thing.
No, it was the first one. It was against Trump, I think. I might be wrong, but she's ripped him a new one in person.
Trump wouldn't have debated any Democrats outside of presidential debates. That's just not how it works, kind of thing.
She ripped him a new one, as I recall. But it was anyway. The point is, I've seen her do this before.
I mean, I'm sure she would have done it in absentee, like like
No.
absolutely,
But
kind
it
of
was
thing.
in
But
person. There was an in-person
I don't know.
ripping.
Maybe there was a debate where it was both Trump and Pence versus Biden and Harris. I don't know.
I
I
don't.
mean,
I might be getting off topic here. To bring it back, what I would
sure,
say
yeah,
is that I think culture
right.
is the sum total of the experiences we can choose to have in common. When people share an experience together that they chose to have, they can make certain assumptions about each other, and those assumptions become the basis of shared endeavor.
I
Right.
agree. Yes,
So culture is.
that is actually a really good definition of culture. Yeah,
Thank you. I don't know
yeah,
if we've talked about it before, but when you put
yeah.
somebody in a dark room with a bunch of other people and they walk out knowing that they all chose to walk in there, they can assume, oh, I like math, I like science, I like people watch Star Trek together. They have a common vocabulary, and that
Right. There's a commonality to the situation.
the quality of our culture determines the quality of all shared human endeavor. We can't. The problem with our society right now is the culture is not supportive enough of interesting, useful things. If everybody
Right.
knows, oh, we chose to watch Duck Dynasty, that doesn't tell you useful things about the other person. So our job as artists is to create a.
Our culture is literally obsessed with it perpetually decreasing the difficulty of living.
Yes,
Yeah.
and of devaluing human life,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
that is useless. And
Yep.
I don't want the government contributing to that.
Yeah,
So
I agree.
So, no. Like what we need is deeper understanding of human life. It is we need to learn to be more compassionate and more in tune with each other, and we need to learn better boundaries. If it is actually true, I read somewhere recently, it wasn't a reliable place, it
Yeah.
was a meme, but I saw the statistic that 1 out of
Well,
6
to me, this
people.
is all just like everyone needs to be in therapy, and we need to start really like putting an emphasis on
Yes.
strong mental health,
And the
kind of
better
thing.
culture we build, the more people
Yeah.
are going to be naturally predisposed to help each other with those kinds of resources.
Yes,
And ultimately, there's no need to walk away from that fight. So, no, we do not need
you're
we,
correct.
we don't need to dehumanize people that are screwing up. And the truth is, power is an addiction.
Yes, it is.
Powerful people are behaving just like my mom. They're just drunks. They're
Yep.
it's all
They're power drunk.
somebody else isn't doing worse than me, so we don't need to talk about this. Or
It's,
it's
it's
like
it's all it's all fixed mindset. It's all shunting accountability to to something external,
yep,
never taking responsibility. Yeah, yeah.
rationalization, rationalization, rationalization. So
Right. Right, because when you're in a community, any slights against you are slights against the community, and subsequently it is the community's responsibility to deal with them, not an individual's kind of thing.
dehumanizing that process makes
Yeah.
more people vulnerable to that addiction.
Yep. Yep.
So going ahead
So
and
how do we take all of this and make the best Call of Duty movie possible?
well, I think we've already landed on it. I think the first step is to dig into the archives and find out exactly tonally what the game was supposed to be, and and lean into a nice, concise effort on the part of what's his name, Price, to
Right.
finish the job that he started in the 70s or the 90s, I guess, and and build the story out of that arc, and let him lead it, and the tools that he uses to lead that are his team, his access to commanding officers, and the rules of the universe as they become clear through kind of the pre-production documents on the game
Right.
itself.
And being honorable to the intent of the game devs,
That's right.
not so much necessarily the way the game was played by the players, kind of thing.
Well, we don't have to worry so much about the multiplayer. This is
Well,
but
again, yes, absolutely correct. But like, you could also Mutalisk bomb in the main campaign of StarCraft, kind of thing.
yes, yes,
You could stop attack. You could stop attack move with Marines in the campaign. And there's the thing is like if you knew these crazy multiplayer techniques, you would annihilate the campaign because
yes.
It
I
wasn't
will
made
say
for that.
that's exactly right. And at the same time, I think it's also fun if a character finds themselves able to use, you know, a tool that the players found themselves predisposed to use, that becomes a fun Easter egg. So there's no reason to hide from the choices that the players may have made, as long as they do not destroy the universe, and as long as they're true to the character, and as long as they don't break anything. Like,
Right.
it becomes a really charming opportunity to slip something in that the players go, oh, which is, I mean, that's nice.
Well,
But
and this is the thing. That's like we said with StarCraft, and I stand by for any adaptation, be it book, video game, whatever, comic, whatever,
yep,
is that you have to find a way to appeal to both the new people and the fan base.
I agree. Greg, we need to get you out the door.
Yeah.
We've been
Yes, I
talking.
gotta run. I got things to do. This was wonderful.
I had
I
fun.
love
I had
it.
fun. Thank you for being
What do
here.
we want? What do we want to do next week? I picked this one. I think it's only fair that you pick the next one. What do we want to do next week?
Let's do Space Quest.
So Space Quest was the one where I said I had only played the second one because that was the one with Vohal.
Yes.
Is that what it?
Yes.
All right, yeah. I'm gonna be a little out of my league. I'll try to do some research and try to catch myself up. All right, Space Quest next time.
You know
Let's
what? It's
do
really
it.
easy. It's not a long game. It's easy to watch a YouTube video and get the whole story. It's boom, 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 boom.
It'll be good. Yeah, and honestly, I like that because we have kind of gone in the direction of like very heavily tentpole feature for like the first two games that we've done, kind of
Yes.
thing.
Yep.
And I think that Space Quest is probably not something that needs to be like full scale tentpole feature. I almost see like, and just off the top of my head, just kind of like a setup next week.
Save it for next
kind of
week.
thing.
Save it for next week. We'll keep.
I just want to say,
Okay.
the feeling I get from Space Quest is like the last Starfighter.
Oh, see, my if I was to give a comp off the top of my head, I would give Tank Girl.
What is it?
Tank Girl.
I've never even heard of that. Tank Girl?
Tank Girl, like the comic, Tank Girl.
I've never heard of it. I have no idea what you're talking about.
It's Lori Petty's biggest movie, dude.
Tank, as in like an M1 Abrams tank?
Correct.
Tank Girl. All right, I'll write it down.
Ice-T plays a kangaroo man.
This is a movie?
It's got Malcolm McDowell in it.
When did this come out?
Now, it's
Tank Girl.
It's not a great movie.
1995 sci-fi action.
It did cut a great trailer. It cut a better
Lori
trailer.
Petty, Naomi Watts, Ice-T, Malcolm McDowell. Anyone else I know in here?
That's pretty much all the actors, I think, anyway. Like literally.
And Cusack apparently. Oh no, Doug Jones is in it. Doug Jones is in everything. I love Doug Jones. Doug Jones is in everything. Was there a movie with a good acting creature in it? That was Doug Jones. Like it's never anyone other than Doug Jones is the GOAT character actor. Like he really, sorry, not character actor, creature actor. He's the GOAT.
There are some highly quotable lines in that movie. I will say that there are some highly quotable lines. At one point, Lori Petty says, "Well, it's been swell, but the swelling's gone."
Okay. I mean, to me, like, look, I grew up in the days of Doom and Quake.
Yeah.
And the best one-liner of all time is from Duke Nukem. No one's gonna. I'm here to kick ass and chew bubble gum, and I'm all out of gum.
But isn't that stolen? Isn't that stolen from They Live?
Is it? I always thought that was Duke Nukem's line. Maybe it is stolen. I don't know. Because anytime you hear any variation of that, I'm like, that's Duke Nukem.
I'm pretty sure Duke Nukem just straight up hitched it. Let me check. Let me just.
Wow.
I think it was Rowdy Piper who said that.
Oh my goodness. You know what's astounding to me about this movie, Tank Girl?
What's that?
It was made in 1995. You want to guess on what the budget was?
They Live.
It's from They Live. Okay.
Rowdy Piper.
How about that?
Which, have you seen They Live, Greg?
I have not.
Greg.
I'm a modernist.
Greg.
My knowledge is like 1990 and forward.
Listen to me, because this movie is so many of your fetishes wrapped up in one. No. This is
Oh,
John
I don't know if
Carpenter.
we've had that
This is
discussion
John
yet.
Carpenter. This is John Carpenter, like winning you over. This is it. This
1988.
don't even watch the trailer. Just watch the movie. Just do it. Just do it.
Howdy,
There's
Robbie Piper.
there's no chance you're not going to love this movie. I predict 0 chance. And
I like movies like this. I like this kind of
dystopian. No,
premise.
the whole thing is just I don't even.
Well,
want
I read like the cover jacket blurb that kind of a wanderer without meaning in his life discovers a pair of sunglasses capable of showing the world the way it truly is. Like
don't
to me, that's a great log line.
Yeah.
Like I love that as a log line. That's really
you're
cool.
gonna love the visuals of this movie. You're gonna love everything about this movie.
Wow.
Just
Yeah, no, I'll check it out. That's pretty cool. Is what's it on? It's on Amazon Prime, it looks like. All right, I'll figure that out. That's cool.
Watch it
Yeah,
as
no, I'll
soon as
check it out.
possible. You will thank me.
Probably won't happen until Monday.
Okay.
But you know, I'll try to get to it.
All right, I've got a meeting at
anything-
2. I have a lunch to eat in the meantime, so I am
Hank
gonna.
Hill, I don't know. There was one last thing I wanted to say, and now I don't remember what it was. Doug Jones. Doug Jones is awesome. Maybe it was just Doug Jones is awesome. So, all right. Well, dude, this is great. Thank
Likewise, you're welcome. Thank you.
you.
Enjoy everybody
yeah.
who comes along, and we will see you next week.
Absolutely. We're doing Space Quest.
Don't be a stranger, Ranger. Take care.
Take care.